Okay, the March Historic Preservation Commission meeting come to order. I'd like to go over the meeting procedure, which is on the back of the front page of your agenda. The chairman will announce each case and ask interested parties to indicate their presence by raising their hand. Commissioners will discuss details of the case, calling on staff for details. Following this discussion, commissioners may choose to ask questions of parties present. Interested persons may speak to support or protest the application. The applicant will be entitled to one brief rebuttal. Interaction between applicant and protestants on the floor is not permitted. Persons speaking are asked to approach the center podium one at a time to introduce themselves by name and address and to present their position as succinctly as possible. The Commission asks each speaker to limit his or her remarks to no more than 5 minutes. Following this public hearing on an application, the Commission will take one of the following actions. 1, approve the certificate of appropriateness. 2, continue the proposal. 3, deny the proposal with prejudice, which means the application may not be resubmitted for at least 1 year unless the Commission determines that circumstances have changed. Or 4, deny the proposal without prejudice, which means the applicant may reapply at any time. When an application has been approved and after a 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the CA to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA has been issued. Contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. And finally, any person aggrieved by any decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the Commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the BOA. And I skip. Paula, would you call the roll, please?
Alan Brown.
Present.
Neela Crank-Clements.
Present.
Suzanne Broadbent.
Present.
Taylor Fudge.
Present.
George Massey.
Present.
Mary Jo Meacham.
Present.
Klaus Ryman Phillip.
Present.
Linda Schultz.
Present.
Ann Zacharitz. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. All right, on to item 2, okay, for the minutes, from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer.
Only
Okay.
that the State Historic Preservation Conference is coming up. It'll be in April this year instead of June, as it has been in the past, and we're coordinating with Commission members about attending the conference.
Okay, thank you. And on to 3, acceptance of the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any comments on the minutes or motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted. On to Code Enforcement Report. Anybody from the city here? No? Katie, would you like to?
Just that,
comment?
as always, if you see under the column that says citation an actual number listed, that means that it's progressed from a notice of violation to an actual citation with a ticket. You can follow up with our staff or with the Action Center for additional information about any of these items.
Okay, thank you.
Alan, I had a question on the, not this specific report, but I had emailed Katie about a complaint I had received, 2 from Heritage Hills, about a project that has been completed that looked like it may not have conformed to the actual CA height requirements. And I don't know if you'd had a chance to do anything with that one, Katie. 300 Northwest 15th Street.
We did send that on to the inspector, and I do not recall if we've had anything. He confirmed that he received that. I don't recall if we had any further action on it, but I'll follow up.
Okay, could we have a chance at some point to see the application again and view
Sure.
that after they do that? That would be good. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so no continuance announcements and requests. Is that correct?
We do have one new
Okay.
request for a continuance. It
That's right.
is item D2, HPCA 18-201, and they want to be continued to the May 1st meeting.
All right.
What number is that on our?
D2 on your agenda.
D2. Thank you.
D2. All right, is there a motion to continue D2?
Move to continue to the May 1st meeting.
Second.
Okay, been moved.
May
Second.
1st.
May 1st meeting?
Yeah, did I say that? Yeah.
Just 30 days. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, D2 is continued. And now on to public hearings, dilapidated structures.
We have one, C19-04719 at 711 Northwest 22nd Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6, regarding detached garage only. Received Historic Preservation Commission comments regarding structures in the process of being declared dilapidated, as initiated by the City of Oklahoma City Development Services Code Enforcement pertaining to properties that contribute to the historic integrity of the historic district, and 2, effective proposed demolition of structure on historic character of the property and district. To refresh everybody on the way dilapidated structures work, this is a determination that Development Services moves forward to City Council for their vote, and City Council declares structures to be dilapidated when they are considered to be a hazard to public health and safety. We do not grant a certificate of appropriateness for those demolitions because it is considered to be a public safety issue. We are asked, when it is in an HP district, to weigh in on whether or not those properties are historic and contribute to the historic character of the district. So we are being asked for comments on that issue specifically, and not so much on the demolition, the structural condition of the property, et cetera.
So is Mr. Hubble here?
I do.
Okay. All right. So,
My name is Bradley Darren. I'm assisting David Carty with the matter at hand here. We have a structure which has actually, in the past year, has become unsafe, and it has leaned and is about ready to fall. So yes, we do need to address this, and I guess what we're asking for is if we could have an extension for a certain amount of time so we can actually have this removed. I don't think that it's repairable or the structure is repairable itself. So with the tree that we had fall last August, it caused a lot of damage to the building and to the fencing and the yard property itself. We are in agreement that we do need to remove this from the property.
yeah.
Did you say, are you the owner, sir?
No, I'm a property manager for Oklahoma City Property Group, and I also do maintenance. I'm the maintenance supervisor for his property group.
Okay.
Representing the owner.
So this
That's
body
legal?
doesn't have the ability to grant any kind of
Is it legal?
extensions. We
Right.
are purely making a comment
Okay.
that will be forwarded on to City Council.
Okay.
So anything to do with the citation that you may have received, the removal of the structure, will all have to be worked out with the code enforcement officer
Okay.
from Development Services.
So to date, right now, we don't have a citation. We just are made aware that we need to remove the structure.
I believe so. I believe,
We're just commenting from an historic preservation standpoint
Yeah.
today.
Oh,
Has
very
someone
well.
contacted
Okay.
you from Development Services about demoing the
Okay.
garage? Has someone contacted you from
We have
Development
received a
Services?
letter, yes.
okay,
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 okay.
yep.
So
All right.
you'll need to call the number on the letter
Okay,
and talk to them
Okay.
about getting an extension. We can't do that.
okay, very well.
Are
All
there any
right.
comments on the recommendation, or what is it called?
I think
Yeah,
it would be
recommendation.
interesting on these to know what the history of the inspections were. In other words, what the history through the city's process is before we get to demolition going forward. That's just my comment.
Just in general? Maybe something we talk about at the workshop or something.
And I think sometimes in the past, they have provided us with a copy of kind of a report on all of the citation history. So we can certainly ask for that.
Thank you.
So, if it was a normal application, I imagine we would, it's structurally looks like a hazard, as you commented in your comments. Does anybody have any comments on this?
We're just commenting on whether or not it retains historic integrity, right, Katie?
Well, there's three things.
Right. But we're not approving or recommending demolition.
Correct.
Is everybody clear on that?
Yes, so
And
we just make a motion to make those comments? Okay.
Make a motion to forward that recommendation.
okay.
So is that one?
Would you like to make
Can
that
I make a motion to forward these comments to the city council regarding this
Yeah.
property?
Is your
It
yeah,
is
it is.
now. Okay. I second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to send this to on. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Very good.
Very well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We sent it on, so. On to National Register nominations, none. Consent docket cases, I think there's some to be pulled.
Yeah, we had four items on the consent docket. We did receive comments from the Heritage Hills Neighborhood Association asking that items 1 and 4 be pulled from the consent docket for discussion. Generally, if we have someone from the public ask for that, we go ahead and pull those.
Okay. Was it, Linda, did you want to say something about number 2?
I'd like to pull number 2.
Okay. So 1, 2, and 4, so we're just going to vote on 3, right?
Yes.
Do we have to vote on pulling them first and then vote on them 3?
No, we don't have to make a motion to pull them
Okay.
from the consent docket.
All right, so, is that right? So we just need a motion to consent doc for number 3 only. So,
I move to approve HPCA 18-00200.
okay.
Second.
All right, so moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent docket is approved. If you were here for that, you're approved. I mean,
Just for item 3.
just for item 3, you can leave. We're going to talk about 1, 2, and 4 next.
Okay.
Katie?
Item 1 on the consent docket, HPCA 18-00029, Revision 1 at 322 Northwest 15th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Kirk Hollander, Aquascape Pools for Maureen and Jim Watson for certificate of appropriateness to revise previously approved cabana size and orientation, chimney height, and location and dimension of previously approved mechanical screening wall required. This was a structure that was previously approved by the commission and was constructed in a slightly different footprint and orientation than what was on the initial CA. Staff had recommended approval of the revision.
Is the applicant present? There he is, okay. So what is different?
Oh, as noted in the document,
If you would, just go ahead and state your name.
oh, I'm
It's
sorry.
fine. I was
You're
particularly
asking,
talking to Katie.
you're asking her,
Yeah.
sorry. Jim Watson, I'm the owner.
Okay, great, thank you. So back. So, just what, I would like to know what is built differently.
Is that a question for me?
So, yeah,
I don't know.
the footprint changed somewhat from what was initially approved. It was approved at 12 feet by 18 feet and changed to 20 feet by 16 feet. So, longer and skinnier, or fatter and shorter, however you look at it. Because of the change in the footprint, it changed the height of the roof a little bit just because of the pitch. So it got about 3 feet taller than what was initially approved.
Okay, 16. I was looking for an overall height on the proposed drawing. 16.
It is 16 feet 8 inches tall.
8 inches, okay. There it is. Is there a reason why it was built differently from the drawing?
It was built incorrectly.
Oh, okay.
It was a very big project,
Yeah.
and, that was one piece of the project.
Yeah.
I think our general contractor did a good job on most of the project. The subcontractors did a good job on most of the project. The sub that was brought in to do the cabana ended up being fired from the job. The second sub that came in had to finish it. I had communications along the way that it did not look like it was being built like we wanted. It did not turn out like we wanted or submitted. We put a lot of care and attention into that design and made my frustrations clear to the owner, the GC, and obviously the first sub didn't manage it through. We went on vacation, got back, that thing was so far along, the decision was made by me to just finish it. So I apologize that it did not come out per the original specs. It was not my intent. But it's, we're here, and I think the two choices are our request for an exception, or I got to go back to the owner and the GC to have it redone. And I hope you'll choose the former.
So, Mr. Watson, did they move the pool equipment? I mean, did that end up in a place you didn't expect it?
Yeah, that was the, actually, it was the gas company came in when we weren't there, and they put it in that spot, not where, again, where we intended. So that did slide from directly behind the cabana to, I think, 10 feet to the east.
What did your contractor say about correcting cabana? Is that something he said he could do?
Well, the entire frame was done, so it basically would have to come down and start over, and either they will have to pay for it, or I'm going to have to go to litigation to get them to pay for it, because it was, the design was clear, what we wanted.
I don't think it's substantially different, in my opinion. And
So the question is, as built, does it fit within the guidelines? I understand it was on the consent docket. What's the concern from the neighborhood? Is anyone here from the neighborhood to speak on this item? Okay. You can take that microphone over here. This one.
I'm Randy Ice from the Neighborhood Design Committee in Heritage Hills. We provided the Commission with a whole list of all of our comments in writing, so hopefully you all got a copy of that, and they're by address. This is the first one to come up. Our concern was that it was 48% larger than was originally approved by square footage, and it's just significantly larger than we had anticipated. And I think Mr. Massey's already made a comment that code enforcement should have been involved. Someone along the way should have said, wait a minute, what's going up here? This is not matching what the Commission had approved. We do not like applicants coming to the Commission after the fact and saying it wasn't done like you all approved it. To us, that undermines the ordinance. It undermines the authority of the Commission. And that's why we have recommended denial of this.
I share your concerns about coming back to the Commission and asking for an exception.
So did you answer the question, Katie, about as built, is it within the guidelines of structures, of outbuilding structures that you can see from the street? Is that why it's on the consent agenda?
It is, I think, as much within the guidelines for an accessory structure of this type as was the one that was approved previously, if that makes sense.
in other words, extra size and height doesn't violate some.
Yeah, there's not a numerical limit on the height for accessory structures like this. There's not a numerical limit on the size for accessory structures.
So what is
like
the
this.
guideline that we would follow?
So the guidelines for accessory structures of this type talk about appropriate location and setting, being located in the backyard, that the design of new accessory buildings shall be secondary to that of the main historic building, that accessory buildings more than 6 feet tall should be compatible in size, scale, proportion, spacing, texture, et cetera. Should follow historic site and backyard setback patterns of other accessory buildings. So staff felt like these were all things that were identified and addressed in the initial approval of the project, and while it's different from the initial project, it wasn't so substantively different that it no longer met with the Commission's initial findings.
So would forfeit have been substantive? I guess I'm trying to figure out what is a substantive height difference from the street. given the landscaping?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I
Okay.
think, I think it's just a evaluation on what was approved and how significant of a change it is from what was approved. Staff didn't feel like it was terribly significant change from what was approved the first time.
It's unfortunate. Subcontractor was fired. Don't leave town next time during construction.
It was a good trip, by the way.
Okay. Things happen with contractors. You got to watch.
I have to say, I agree wholeheartedly with Dr. Rice. I think it's a very unfortunate precedent if we allow this to go forward. I think it should be denied, in my opinion, and redone.
Okay.
I struggle with the guidelines, and we don't really have a number. We don't have something to kind of hang our hat on, and it really is visually not much different. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm sitting. I don't know. What do you think? Anybody else?
I mean, fundamentally, I think it's pretty similar to what was proposed originally, and I think if this had been proposed initially versus what was proposed, I think we would have probably approved it as well.
What's to prevent someone in the future just going off and doing whatever they want to do afterward? It's a very dangerous
You have to
precedent,
look
in
at
my
every
opinion.
case on its own merit, and yeah, I mean, we've seen some where they've gone off and built it completely different, and it no longer falls within the guidelines.
And this is not completely different, just kind of change the
Yeah.
portions a little bit.
Yeah.
So
It's different. This is
It's
the
not the
next
same.
door house to this one is what I just talked about, 300 Northwest
Mm-hmm.
15th. So that will be also affected by the decision here. Be a precedent.
Originally, too, the commission made the decision to, because we're talking about the original application, the commission made the decision to allow things that the neighborhood was quite concerned about in terms of character of the neighborhood and what's a backyard, and everybody worked really hard, I think, applicant and the commission, to reach a plan that they felt okay about. So it's like saying, well, you know, we worked real hard to get a 20-foot structure in the front yard. You know, what's 23? So, I mean, I think to base it on the original needs to be based on the recognition that it was a little bit, you know, sort of out of the ordinary anyway. So it's not like we're going from totally routine to have a swimming pool in your side yard to, I mean, it wasn't. So, I mean, that's the only thing I would like to point out, is that it wasn't an ordinary application to start with, and that it required, you know, work on both sides to get it to the point where it was possible at those heights, with that landscaping, with those fences, and it was all sort of irregular. So it's not going from normal to 3 feet more. It's going from sort of out of the ordinary, but acceptable.
Were there unique circumstances for this originally? Was it truly unordinary?
I believe there probably were unique circumstances. I don't have a copy of the original CA unless it's
I
here.
don't
I
remember
don't think it's
either.
attached here. This is an unusual property that has a very large side yard that is essentially a lot that was never developed, but that has been part of their property. We generally don't approve things like swimming pools, things like accessory structures in a side yard location, but they were approved at this property. I don't recall when this one was, it's been within the past year that it was approved, May of last year.
May I ask or point out one additional comment, please? Could I ask one of the pictures to be frozen when it comes up? It's a profile view. Let's see. Keep going. There. Oh, go back. Right there. So that roof is now 1 foot taller than the chimney. The original design, I believe, was 2 feet lower than the chimney. So, yes, the roof is 3 feet taller, but if you take the entire project, it's now 1 foot taller than what was the, height of the chimney. So it's, in fact, that was one of my frustrations, was I wanted to be able to see the chimney, and now it's kind of hidden back there. So it's a minor point.
Was there any, of course, the footprint would affect the roof shape because it's the pitch to be the same. What, did the guy who built it, did he say why he did it before you fired him?
I had a language barrier with the subcontractor.
Okay. So there was nothing that unforeseen that came up?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just wondering.
Plans were out there every day.
Yep. Okay, well, somebody want to, more comments, might want to try a
Well,
motion?
Okay, so when we get cases like this before us, our duty is to look at them as if they were presented as an original application for certificate of appropriateness. So our job is not to deny just because somebody didn't follow the rules. We're supposed to look at it under those guidelines. Well, in that case, if this were coming to us today as a first-time certificate of appropriateness and we had a neighborhood presenting issues, I believe we would continue it and see whether they could work it out and give the neighborhood a chance to bring their concerns to us in a fashion at the next meeting where we can really evaluate their comments.
Okay, I think we have one right here.
Yeah. Shannon Rundle, 431 Northwest 20th, Heritage Hills, and I'm on the Preservation Review Committee. And I agree with what Linda said. We did, because this is a side yard and so visible from the street, we were not sure on the first go-round of the plan that, we approved. I think, though, there's more at stake here. I hear people tell me all the time that their contractor says, well, the city never inspects, they never check anything, and so we can just do what we want to do once we get on the job. And I guess my question is, who pulled the permit on this? Did the contractor get the permits? I mean, and if he got permits and all that, it seems like your contractor would be liable. And I know that on that case several years ago in Crown Heights where, the buyer didn't know he was getting a house with unapproved new windows, and the only resolution on that was for the buyer to have to go back on the seller and everyone else involved to fix the situation, because it's really not your fault. I mean, you hired a contractor, and I'm assuming he was licensed. Certainly for the pool, he would have to have been licensed, and so, but it's a continuing problem, and I'm hearing from friends who are having work done that their contractor said, oh, don't worry about that. The city's not going to check on it. So what if it's a little bit different or higher or lower or not existent, So I just think it's a problem that I don't know how the city addresses it. I think probably we need to be really careful to warn people, particularly Mr. Watson is new in town, and, we probably should have let him know that he needs to really monitor that contractor and make sure the contractor does it exactly the way the city, permitted it to be done. But I don't know, you all are going to have to decide, but I just think that that's something we're hearing in our neighborhood a lot, that contractors are just kind of doing it the way it's easier for them. If there's a mistake, they just say, well, the city doesn't care. So anyway.
Back here.
Yeah, I know.
I want to clarify that certainly work being done that is not in conformance with the CA is a serious issue, and we know that it can be a problem, and we don't want to support that. When it comes to our review of work that has already been completed, as was said, we are supposed to review it as if it had not already been completed. So in this case, we would review this like any other request to amend a previously approved CA. When we get those, we generally do not debate over again whether or not that CA should have been approved in the first place. It was approved, it's valid, it has not yet expired, they have a CA. What we are considering is whether or not this change to the approved CA is so significant that it's no longer in compliance with the guidelines. That's my interpretation of what we're being asked to do when we review a request for a revision to a CA.
So, unfortunately, that's the way we're supposed to handle this.
Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Kate, that we look at them each individually, but it's a part of a total project. So to say, well, he went out and built a cabana and there's nothing else there and we've never seen the project before is kind of hard to do, because we look at these changes within the totality of the impact that the entire project has on the neighborhood and what variances there are and to the ordinances and what impact they have on very close neighbors and neighbors across the street and the character of the neighbor. I mean, we do all of that. So, I mean, I don't think it's inappropriate to remember the total project. But, I mean, maybe it is. That's kind of, I don't know that I could do it.
We can still remember the total project, but just review this component as if it's new.
Right.
So,
I mean, I agree. I think that, we're looking at, we have to look at the amendment, and if we would have done it the first time, it's hard to know. But I don't think, I am a contractor, maligning all contractors that were out there saying, hey, we can do whatever we want, I think is an unfair, way to speak about most of the people that work in Heritage Hills, because they know that we have very significant rules. And we hear the neighborhood coming up all the time saying, it just happens all the time. I don't think it does happen all the time. If you look at the 263 applications that we did last year, and the compliance is probably, very, very high. So, I mean, I agree with staff that I think that we may have debated this in the end, but I think that we could have, it's certainly possible that we would have agreed that this could have been permitted the first time around.
But what we're lacking today is comments from the neighborhood about the merits of the plan. I mean, they may not want to make any, but what we've heard from the neighborhood is just denial because it doesn't comply with the original CA.
well, they had an opportunity, so.
Well, I'm just saying it's not here. And if they wanted to have some time to do that, I would recommend a continuance, but I'm not quite sure what the neighborhood desires at this point. But I'd like to make sure.
Well, I think they did have an opportunity
Yeah.
because they met. Their committee
They did.
met, and people were notified. So,
Well, they also commented on it previously, but if we can't incorporate those comments,
did we not incorporate the comments the first time into the project? Is that part of the issue, is that we felt,
I mean, they did comment on the project.
right?
I understand Suzanne's commentary about, our usual forgiveness rather than permission when people have already done something, but this has already been done, and it was approved as something else, and they went and did the wrong thing. And I think at the minimum, it should be a continuance for Mr. Watson to visit with his contractor, because I think they should redo it, and I think they should do what they were approved to do, in my opinion.
It seems like there are kind of two separate issues here. There's, this specific item that we're discussing, but also kind of this larger issue that we've been discussing about whether it's demolition without a CA or kind of other items that aren't in compliance that are kind of done outside the scope of the Historic Preservation Commission. And that's something that we've been kind of discussing in the background a little bit, trying to figure out, is there a better system to maybe penalize someone who doesn't follow the CA, but I do feel like in this particular case, I mean, we reviewed it before and approved it. I think, the changes, even though they're unfortunate, I think fundamentally hasn't changed the project really. I think the neighborhoods had a chance to comment. I think we've discussed it.
So our options are, we can continue this and have you chat with your contractor to try to rebuild it. That's a potential. We could deny it, or we could approve it. So I guess I'm hearing from several commissioners that they would prefer to give you time to continue it and talk with your contractor, because it may very well be denied today or approved. We don't know yet.
Yeah. Well, if he's going to rebuild it, I mean, if the committee denies it, then it'll get rebuilt anyways, right?
If
I mean, we end up in
you,
the same place.
I mean,
where
you work with staff to,
Or I can come back and
we can't make
resubmit
you
a whole...
rebuild it,
Pardon?
but we can't make you rebuild it. As far as, if he says, no, I'm not going to rebuild it, we can't, require him to do that.
I thought I have like some sort of like lien or something on the house right now from the city.
Like a citation.
Neighbors.
You end up with a notice? Yeah. So I think if this was denied today, then we would follow back up with code enforcement on the notice of violation, and the kind of next most obvious path would be, well, you need to just bring it into compliance with the CA as it was originally approved. Your options, your alternatives to that would be to appeal the commission's denial to the Board of Adjustment, which is always an option, or to apply once again for some other alternative design.
Okay. Well, what's the harm of having a vote? I mean, we're here, we heard it.
Yeah, it looks like we're kind of evenly split, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So I don't know which way, we could take a vote.
Are you not interested in a continuance? You want to vote one way or the other?
Well, the continuance is to go back and ask the sub or the contractor to go rebuild it, right? Well, if you deny it, I'm going to go back and either have that conversation or go resubmit a new application. So it kind of saves me a trip back here, saves you a second hearing.
Yeah, either
right?
way there, you're going back and...
Yeah, I'd like to...
So we ought to try one to approve it, because that's the...
I would make a motion to approve
Either way.
HPC.
What's that? Go ahead.
I would go ahead and make a motion to approve HPCA 18-00029. Is that it? No, I'm not on the wrong one. 18-0015. Well,
No.
which one is it? Yeah,
Correct.
I'm sorry, 0029.
I second that.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, so we need a show of hands. All in favor? How many is that?
5.
5, and all opposed? And that is 3? Okay, so, been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that was the first one, okay.
Okay. Number 2, HPCA 18-00184 at 904 Northwest 37th Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Mary and Joel Lopez for certificate of appropriateness to 3 demolished garage elective.
Okay, is the applicant present? Okay.
While they're approaching, this applicant does also have an application in to construct a garage. They're still finalizing details of the design of that with staff, so that will be before you at a later date, assuming that the demolition is approved. Staff had recommended approval of this demolition based on both the condition of the garage and aspects of the current garage structure that suggest it has been altered, including the cladding, that there's a variety of different cladding materials on the structure, places where it looks like it's been added onto over time.
My name's Tim Farmer. I'm representing the Lopez family. Mary is here. And I just gave my professional opinion. I'm a builder and designer. And they had me come look at the structure. And I've done some historical work before. So I do appreciate what you guys do, because that's always the first choice, is to preserve and never want to take anything down. But
Thank you.
in this particular case, there's not much original fabric left. Very little of the siding is salvageable. When they replaced the entire roofing structure, they replaced both gable ends, which don't match the structure any longer. So and the biggest problem with the structure is the foundation is in several pieces, very fragmented. And you can see the design on the right here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the framing was very unusual for that time. That web framing is what I call it when they build like that, instead of having vertical studs on 16 or 24 inches. So it's a very weak structure right now, too. Concerned about that.
If you'll pause for a moment.
Sure.
Linda, you requested this be pulled from the consent docket. Would you like to speak on your concerns? Answer questions.
I just wanted to actually speak to you, Mr. Farmer. Thank you. Did you make some sort of assessment that it was of imminent danger to threat to public health and safety? Or did
No.
you? Okay.
I said
Could
that
you
if-
tell me exactly what you...
I think what we talked about was it could be considered that by some inspectors that it's dilapidated due to the weak wall, the way it's framed. And you can see how it's not framed well. And that also made me think that it may not have been original when the house was built, because that's an unusual framing, like a DIY type framing.
Yeah.
And not a professional builder for that time. So that's where I got my ideas.
I don't know how that,
And when you first looked at it, did you look at it with an eye to saving it? And
Always.
what did you, tell me what your...
Always we want to preserve. But the biggest problem with the structure is the foundation. It's just, there's a lot of difference between the front and the back, and everything goes to the back instead of draining to the front like it should. So
is there actually a foundation or just a slab?
it's just a slab.
Yeah.
It's thick, it's got a thickened edge, no footing to it at all. And so that,
Typical on garages.
yeah, you can see that 6x6 timbers have been put in there just to try to hold up the new roofing system, because it won't sit on the outside walls without some kind of support. So it's a very weak structure, and again, there's no original windows or doors, no garage doors in the structure at all. So,
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 18-00184. Item 1, demolition of the existing garage.
Okay.
Second.
There's a second.
Is that with the findings in the staff report?
Oh, I'm sorry, with the specific findings as listed in the staff report, yes.
And second by Joe Meacham. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, been approved.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. HPCA 19-00009 at 126 Northwest 19th Street, Heritage Hills East, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Daniel Ojeda for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct addition elective, and 2, construct deck with trellis elective.
Hi, Danny Ojeda, 126 Northwest 19th.
Okay. Did you sign in also?
Oh, yeah. So essentially what I'm looking to do is add a 394 square foot addition onto the back of the house. We're really limited on closet space. We only have 1 bathroom. So I want to fix that by adding on to it in the back, and then basically connecting the kitchen door with a deck, so you can walk out and have a nice, deck with a trellis for some privacy.
Okay.
So the neighborhood says that trellises of this height are not typical to this part of Heritage Hills East. Back porches are usually covered in either tongue and groove painted planking or concrete. Decks are not common. Doors are most appropriately wood, not vinyl clad wood. Would staff speak to those ideas?
Certainly, the back decks that we see proposed regularly today are not something that we saw historically. It's not the same as a back porch. However, the guidelines do give quite a bit of flexibility to allow for back decks, and we talk a lot in that document about the rear of the property being the appropriate place to accommodate modern use of the property, accommodate new kind of living styles, outdoor living that we see a lot more requests for, where people want that outdoor space. We view decks at the back of a property as relatively temporary in nature. It's something that the next homeowner can come along and very easily remove. It doesn't damage the historic fabric of the structure itself, and it's not, they're generally, the guidelines call for them to be in locations that are not visible from the public right-of-way, so they don't impact the physical character. We administratively approve decks like this quite regularly. Because he's also proposing an addition that we cannot administratively approve, this is before the commission today. But this type of kind of landscape structure installation is something that we see quite a bit, and that the guidelines allow for when it's in an appropriate location, an appropriate size, et cetera. We don't have a lot of very specific language on trellises. They're generally supported in a location where it's not visible. I believe we did not have anything in the guidelines that went into detail on the height of a trellis. We do have language that talks about the appropriate height for a pergola, and I believe this met those requirements if you were to apply those same height restrictions to the proposed trellis.
Thank you.
I thought we approved these regularly.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So, is there a motion?
Well, I'm sorry. You said that it was pulled from the consent docket, and it does have an addition. So did staff originally do a staff put it on the consent docket?
We, especially when we have longer agendas like this, we take any application that we have recommended for approval with no conditions, and we put it on the consent docket.
Okay.
Just try to
I understand.
move things along.
Yes.
People can pull them if there's concerns, but that's just our approach.
Okay. I make a motion to approve HPCA 190009, items 1 and 2 with the specific findings.
Excuse
I'm sorry.
I guess let's ask, see if there's anybody who'd like to speak to that, since we pulled that. Anybody? Like to? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No? All right.
Could I ask a quick question? The trellis is not visible from a public right-of-way. Is it? It appears to me that it's not, but that
Doesn't
is
look like it.
something that is in our guidelines. It appears to me it's on the west side of the new deck and is pretty much in line with the line of the house. Am I reading that correctly?
Right. It will come off the back corner of the west side of the house, sitting on top of the deck.
The deck, okay.
Correct.
So it's not visible really from the street head-on?
No.
And there's not a...
You'd have to
Yeah.
get up to the fence and look over.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. Struggling
Give me to
stuff.
finish my motion.
Okay, finish your motion, sorry.
Items 1 and 2 with the specific findings as noted in the staff, by the staff in the staff report.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's been approved. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
All right. Next. Is Rita not coming?
HPCA 18-00158 at 121 Northwest 22nd Street, Heritage Hills East, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Trey Shropshire, Bryant Construction and Consulting, LLC, for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct dwelling elective, 2, construct detached garage elective, 3, install driveway elective, 4, install front walkway elective, and 5, install fence elective. The Commission saw this application last month at the hearing. The applicant has made several changes since that meeting, and I believe was working towards several additional changes since this packet went out to you. So I'll let him describe that.
Good afternoon. Hello again. I'm just now getting to the fun ones and an hour in. So,
Can you state your name? sir?
Trey Shropshire, managing member of Bryant Shire, and also the property owner.
Okay.
Based on the last meeting, I mean, we made dramatic revisions to exterior elevations as well as the floor plan to kind of become much more cohesive overall with that streetscape. So we brought the porch out. We do not have a large mass that is sticking out in front of it. Very much a wide, low pitch to kind of keep that consistent flow. Additionally, we've added kind of abutting framework on east and west elevation.
So you've met with the neighborhood association?
We have met with the neighborhood association, met
Okay.
last Monday. Most of their recommendations and discussion points were the same as the city. Additional windows are being added, spacing, alignment, those are being adjusted just to kind of match with overall gables, kind of patterns that are on that street. So triple sets of single casement windows.
So what about the brick exterior?
The exterior is dramatically broken up now. The front porch was brought out in front with a very large, wide, low-pitch, expansive roof.
In the drawings we have today?
Yes, you can see that in the elevations. There's both a black and white model as well as a textured. The black and white made it a lot more visible and easier to kind of distinguish what was going on. 3/4 of the way through, roughly.
So I think staff mentioned that you had some additional notes or revisions.
The additional notes are really in regards to the window spacing, alignment. We're adding windows along the entire north elevation of the second story, as well as the east and west elevations of the home. On the south-facing second story, a additional window has been added on the right side where there was that double pair. It is now aligned with the first story window set.
And where do we have a comparison, or do we, of the height of the existing structures on either side?
One page before that black and white 3D elevation is a comparison. As well as I rebuilt the entire streetscape, north and south side to scale based on county assessor, just to show proportions. In case you had any interest in that.
Let's see.
Is this it? Massing?
That streetscape to scale also includes ancillary buildings and garages.
Sir, I didn't hear your answer on the brick. Are you still continuing that idea?
Ideally, I would prefer to go with brick. I am open to adjusting. Based on preference, I would like to go with a modular firehouse brick. But based on your recommendations, neighborhood recommendations, I am open.
But it sounds like you're going to come back one more time, or you're going to try to come back one more time, or?
Ideally, I would not like to, but if that's what is required, an approval with conditions that are very specific is obviously an ideal situation, but.
If you're adding windows, you would have to come back.
Okay.
So with that in mind, you just want us to comment on?
I would like some
make final
comments and just kind of feedback on the design changes to make sure that I am aligned with what you were really wanting the last time, just to make sure that it is the right path moving forward.
Well, I think we're missing a lot of documentation. So
On the
you wanna-
windows, and I've talked with Katie about that, and that
Okay.
will be additional
Okay,
provided.
want to
as
make
well
sure you know that for
course.
the next meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
I have two things I'd like to discuss. One is, I think that you have made changes, but with the type of drawings, which I think are not as detailed as perhaps we might want,
Okay.
that it's more like just a line drawing, which doesn't really adequately show, what it's going to be built with versus architectural drawings.
Okay.
So I'm not saying
No,
you have to be
all of the
that, but
exterior measurements are provided. We didn't really do a full floor plan and the specific framing detail, just because from an interior perspective.
I'm not in regards to that. I'm just looking at the elevations.
Okay.
And so it's really, generally what we would see is, the type of trim, the size of the trim.
You want a full wall detail?
I'm sorry?
A wall detail?
Not necessarily. I mean,
Now?
generally we see there's going to be an arrow. It's going to say the fascia, and it's going to call that out. It's going to call out
Size.
the size of the
material.
columns, the size of the
All of that's
railing.
broken out in
You'll
there.
need a wall
just
section
separate
eventually.
Yeah, wall
changes. So
section.
Okay.
if that would make it easier just to summarize that specifically within the elevations versus a separate specific detail page.
Well, you can probably do it with notes. I've got a few comments just in general on it. First, the material of the brick. Brick doesn't seem to fit the context well, all brick.
I agree, Alan. I drove over there and specifically in regards to the brick, drove up and down the streets to see where the nearest brick were. I really feel like if you ended up with, which I still am not convinced we're not going that direction, some kind of suburban bricked house, that it would just stand out so much on this lot, given the larger sizes, even though I know you're saying your sizes are similar. I looked very carefully also at the setback of the second story, which is very different on yours versus the other ones. But the brick concerns me in that I think it's just going to be very difficult to get a brick that just doesn't look like you've transported a brick house, suburban house, into the neighborhood.
And the other comment is the roof pitches, especially that 2 and 12 pitch across the front.
Yep.
That is, to me, totally out of character. Most of them are 412, I think.
That overall width kind of caused that to try to center that gable, so that's kind of what led to that.
If you go to 412, it may mean that you'll have to shorten a window or something on the front, but that...
What about an additional gable if we had an offset on the left or right side, kind of a rear forward set second roof line?
Could work. Just looking at context, there's a lot of front-facing gables that...
Right. Most of the designs on that street are multiple gables. Mm-hmm. And the porch is...
But the roof pitch is usually about the same, not so dramatically different.
Right. It just looks low. I guess my overall design comment is I feel like now we have like some kind of farmhouse design in front of us.
Last thing I would ever want in the entire world.
Well, it has all of the characteristics except for the brick.
Yeah, the black and white visual did make it look like a farmhouse at first, which is why I added in the texture, because that was my first thought as well with a white brick house.
Well, there's just a number of things architecturally, like the proportion of the columns. The ones, the contextual, they're all much more,
There's a larger span between the two.
More substantial than... It does look sort of farmhousey.
And so then you show them when you're in color. Well, and I think the column is a good example of where we're missing trim. What actually is that? Is that
the 12 by 12 cedar painted?
Right. Once again, the cedar.
That's one of the additional documentation that has been added in a full breakout of overhead elevation as well as side on both.
So are you planning to use cedar trim for everything and paint it black?
On the porch specifically, it's navy versus
or navy.
I think if I were you, I would go look at houses in the surrounding, in the area, and look at proportion and detail and try to incorporate some of that, because that's important to, you look at that picture right there, the consistency of, I don't say consistency, but there's a pattern and materials and forms and details.
That's why I also asked about adding that second roof line to kind of offset it.
But it goes beyond that.
No, it does go beyond that, but that was just a starting point specifically.
That's what I would do in the meantime.
I kind of echo your comments on the roof. What we've used in the past is a rule of thumb for composite shingle, anything, and maybe you can, I don't know what your experience is, but anything less than a 312 slope seems to be almost too shallow for a composite. Yeah, not recommended. So I think sticking to a slope that's a little bit higher, and maybe even, I did look at the house across the street. I think there's a couple different ways to approach a porch on that street. One is, like we talked about, having the gable end, which was a little bit steeper. I'm not sure if it was maybe 512 or 412 or what that was.
Usually, I think 512, like the one in that photograph.
And then across the street, another approach is where they have the gable kind of coming back towards the street, away from the house, if that makes sense, and kind of flat along the front. And I think, there's a precedent for that as well on that street. So maybe there's some other ways you could achieve, the porch, where you have adequate slope there. That'd be one of my comments.
We don't have any recommendation from the neighborhood. Would they be interested in making other comments for us today?
They submitted a recommendation on that. It's kind of, it's echoing really similar, all the feedback, and we've been making those adjustments as well.
So we have somebody, I guess, from the neighborhood speak.
Randy Ice on the Design Review Committee. We submitted written comments. We have met with the applicant. We hope to meet with him again, maybe with some revised plans. And we provided extensive recommendations, very similar to what had been mentioned by the commission. We met with him for over an hour on the plans. Some of our biggest concerns had to do with the setbacks that are mandated in the covenants from roughly 110 years ago with regard to the neighbors and the sewer, and we believe those have to be followed. The neighborhood would ask that the commission, although covenants are not within your purview, we would ask that you not approve anything that would produce a lawsuit between the neighborhood and the applicant. And the neighborhood will move to enforce the covenants if necessary in the courts.
What are you speaking about? You said setbacks?
Setbacks on the sides and the back. There's a, for example, in the back, there's a 3-foot sewer setback in the covenant.
Does this violate any of those?
Yes.
The original 1907 patent, but in the 70s, there was actually revisions done by city ordinances. We can add that documentation if we need to, as well as the citations associated with those.
We don't believe the setbacks were modified by the city in the 70s. We believe those are
That's something
accurate.
that staff can coordinate between the applicant and between the neighborhood to make sure we get the documentation of all that.
Yes,
And that
but-
liability
As far as
also
what's-
rests on me versus, I mean, it does not come back to HP Council as well. So, I mean, from that perspective, that is, I mean, that risk and liability is completely mine.
But
I do
we don't
can
want-
provide you the documentation and citations, but
I think it's important that the staff does provide the information. You don't want to be approving something that will generate problems between the neighborhood and the applicant. I think that's bad public policy.
It's not unusual that we approve, for instance, the construction of a new garage, and an applicant comes back to us a month later and says, I went to get my permit, there's a utility easement that I didn't know about, I need to move the garage by a couple of feet. And we usually can handle that pretty easily, but I do think it is important to have as much of that information up front as we possibly can, especially when it's construction of an entire new dwelling, not just a garage, if only because it may really dramatically impact your design if you have to move structures around.
it absolutely does. I'll provide this to you. I have all the books actually highlighted specific.
Other houses on that block are between 32 and 36 inches wide. This proposal is for over 42, not inches, feet wide. This is a much larger frontage, and so it encroaches further into the edges of the lot. Okay, that's one of the things we'd like to see is something that is more compatible. We'd like to see the spacing between all the houses be similar on that block. And so if the house is too wide, it really produces a very narrow corridor between the houses on both sides, and one side has a shared driveway, which is even more complicated. And that in the covenants, there are specific setbacks required where there is a shared driveway in the original covenants from, as you said, 1907 or 8.
1907 is the original Book 15 patent associated with that addition.
Mr. Shropshire, what are the dimensions of this parcel?
50 by 145.
Okay, so it's not even larger than...
So looking at
It's the same size as the west, most of the west lots moving down that street. It's 5 foot larger than the east lot.
I'm looking at your plat, I guess this is a plat, or survey, A1.1. It does show a 6-foot utility easement. I assume that's on both sides.
At the front of the property, yes. I've talked to him about that, and that is in like book 4,000, and I forget the odd
At the front of the
page
property?
number.
It's the back of the property, isn't it? Back here?
There's the 3 foot at the back.
3 feet. So it's a 6-foot centered on the property line,
Yep.
so 3 feet either side?
It's in front of the overall setback for that street, so you're already behind it.
That's the back property line. The front has a building line, 25 feet.
Yep.
So you have a 3-foot utility
At the
easement
back.
at the back of your property?
Yes.
Yes. That's all my question was. Okay. It's less than normal, but
I think typically it's 5-foot setback.
on both sides. So 10-foot overall.
Or I mean from the back property line, just a typical 5-foot setback. Yeah.
Yep.
Randy, if I could add, do you feel that your discussions with the applicant was yesterday?
No, it was a week ago.
A week ago. Do you feel that there was a positive moving forward with compliance with what
Yes,
neighborhood wishes are?
he took detailed notations, or his colleague did, so he took detailed notes. And we were hoping to have a revised application in place. This was the one that we started with before our discussions. And so that's why we had recommended continuance, because obviously we wanted to get more information on this. We didn't recommend denial, we recommended continuance. Now,
as has staff.
As a staff, yes.
Back on the site plan, there, on the right side, there is noted a 5-foot utility easement. I believe it's on your side to OG&E, which is typical, 5 feet. So
I'll have to look at it more in detail. I see point 10 where you're referencing that.
Yep.
There is a reason why the other houses are at most 36 foot wide. Okay, that's every other house on that side of the block the maximum is 36 foot of building on a 50-foot lot. This is over 42 foot, so that it does tend to narrow the distance, and so it doesn't fit in as well as we'd like.
What are you saying? There's some sort of that's just a standard? 36?
Well, some of these are standards, as you mentioned, utility company standards and sewer sanitation standards. Those are done by code. But there were also originally covenants set in, particularly on the driveway side.
There were covenants? Or
there are covenants. Okay, it says if you have a shared driveway, you have to have at least 6 foot from the building to the property line. So that's one of the covenants. It's in the original plat. And because shared driveways were common at this time, they are not common today. So there had to be special rules with regard to how they were handled.
Well, I don't see anything on the covenants here, which would be good to know.
Pardon me?
That's the original plat and patent information associated with it in 1907. I mean, that's prior to the city of Oklahoma City or any city ordinances, utility, Department of Public Works. So, I mean, there have been revisions made to that original documentation.
I think, in the interest of time, we can just know that for the next time that we look at this, I'm assuming this is going to be continued based on the discussion. We'll get that information from the neighborhood, from the applicant. We'll check with plan review at the city on how those are evaluated and get all of that information for you.
I just have one question. Don't mean to delay, but we all know what a setback is. I'm aware of that. What do we really term the space between homes? What do we call that?
What's that?
The spacing between homes on any block.
Side yard setback.
Side yard
I know
setback.
that. Is there any more setback type of? It's just no other technical term for that.
There is sometimes a side yard setback. I don't think in these older neighborhoods there is any.
No.
Lots of times it's 5
Based
feet.
on the revisions that were done by the city and the specific ordinances, it said it specifies must be similar to other properties on that street.
Yeah. So lots of times there will be, and that right now, if you're closer than 5 feet to the property line, you have to have a fire-rated wall, for instance.
Right.
There's things
Because I know, and I've had worked on transactions in Mesta Park, which I have one right now, and one in Edgemere, that you could literally hand a loaf of bread to the person next door. So there was obviously sometime back in the day that they didn't think about that. Well, we got a little space here, let's get another home in there. So.
There's a lot of garages that are built right on the
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of why they moved forward originally. Like, when they made the revisions and city ordinances took over the original patents, it stated similar side yard setbacks to existing properties on the street.
I just got one quick comment. I think on your site plan that you're showing, you have the dimensions of the building itself and garage, but I don't think there are any dimensions between the building and the property lines.
Okay.
So that'd be good to see as well. I think I misspoke on the setbacks. It's 5 foot side yard setback, 10 foot off the back, and normally 25 off the front, I think, if I'm correct. But it doesn't matter anyways because...
Typically, I think it's 10 feet in the back, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. But, right, the historical context is a precedent here anyways. So, anyway.
So we'll continue it to when?
So the next meeting is April 3rd. The meeting after that is May 1st.
And for April 3rd, he would have to get all documents to you by what date?
By this coming Tuesday, the 12th.
I'll reach out to you. Let's put it for there. If I need to adjust, I can reach out directly.
Are you going to have time to chat with the neighbors again?
I'm going to reach out to Dr. Eisen, but they were very, very helpful in setting a special meeting so we could discuss all this prior. So
It'd be hard to do all this by next Tuesday, would it? do your documentation?
So this is your this will be your last continuance, and at the next meeting, they have to
Yep,
either
they have to vote,
yes or no. So, yeah.
Okay.
I would go for May 1st if I were you.
It's up to you, but
up to
that's a
you.
short
Let's put it there, and like
window.
I said, I'll reach out and speak with Dr. Ice and discuss possible meeting times.
Well, we can't
We can't
We can't
change
move
it.
it once they vote on a,
Well, why not? Let's put it for April 3rd and just have a little fun with it then.
okay.
Okay, sounds fun. I move to continue HPCA 18-00158 to the April 3rd meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Was it George? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Then continued. Thank you.
All right. Number 2 has already been continued. HPCA 18-00205 at 439 Northwest 19th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Catherine Montgomery Preservation and Design Studio, PLLC, for Eric Flesky and Nova McClaney for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct carport elective, 2, install additional paving elective.
And the applicant's coming forward.
Since the commission reviewed this a month ago, the applicant has removed the covered walkway that attached the parking cover to the, connected from the parking cover to the back porch. They've also modified the dimensions of the proposed parking cover somewhat. Oh, and you have at your seats photos that the applicant took of a mock-up of the parking cover. They built kind of the frame of it out of 2x4s. I did go out and meet them on site when they did that, so I can promise that it's not actually 3 feet tall with a miniature car underneath it or something.
I don't have those photos. I don't think we got those.
Oh, do you
I
have?
brought copies as well.
Okay, Catherine's got them. I have one set. I'm sorry. But she'll be passing those
You have
out.
multiple
so.
copies?
So actually what I have is because the commentary that I provided at the last meeting was not included in your staff report and attachments, I brought those. Also, we had some photographs of the steps of the stairs, to the backyard and the garage that were not included. So I brought those again. And then, we have the photographs that Katie just talked about also. Thank you. Catherine Montgomery with the Preservation and Design Studio representing the applicant.
Okay. So again, what was the change? The removal of the covered walkway? That's it? Oh, lowered the height?
Yes.
How much? Do you know about? Go, Catherine, do you know how much the height has changed?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Do you
that.
know how much the height has changed? Just
Well, I don't rightly know without looking at my staff report.
we don't have
The height is now 10 feet 7, narrowed to 15 feet 10 inches at the base, 15 feet 2 inches at the top. We do not have in here what it was previously. I'm sorry.
And I apologize, I don't recall. I think it was about 15 feet wide on the inside last time, and I think we've lowered it. If you look in conjunction with the height of the covered porch, it's about a foot to a foot and a half lower than it was before.
Okay.
If you'd like me to walk you through the mock-up, I can do that, or answer any other questions that you might have.
Mock-up. Okay.
Ms. Montgomery,
Expected.
I apologize to you if it's in here and I just haven't gotten to it, but in the interest of time, you might can answer me quicker than I can read all this. Is there historical, is there historical documentation on accessory buildings, like the one you're proposing, that are visible from the street, that are in here somewhere? And do you have historical references?
For this particular site or for the district overall?
Well, for the district overall, and for that street, and...
So on this single piece of paper that was passed out, there's a map, and that was included in your staff report this time. We handed that out last time, and we have drawn a red square around each of the side structures, porte cocheres, if you want to call them that, that are within like a block and a half. And then we've got a big red square around the subject site and the location of this particular structure that's being proposed.
And those squares are what now?
There's red squares that represent porte cocheres on houses that are within a block of this particular house.
Can you clarify, little red squares that represent existing porte cocheres, we do not know if those were approved by the commission?
And we do not know whether they're historic or not. That's correct. I'm certain that not all of them were, because just by driving by, you can tell. So on 20th Street, there are 4. On 19th Street, the same side of the block as this particular structure, there are 4. On the north side of the block, which is the south side of 20th Street, there are 2. On the south side of 19th, there is 1. To the east, we only showed the first 4 lots, and there are 2 across Hudson, and we didn't show much on the other side of the block.
But you're not proposing that those are historic?
That those particular structures, I'm saying that there's probably a mix. Some are historic and some are probably not.
The map, Linda, just is to reference the ones that currently exist. That's all we know. We don't know anything else about
That was the intent, to show that this was not something that was unusual to find on the streetscape in that area.
Although I think it's important to note the difference between a porte cochere and, kind of a detached cover, like what you're proposing.
Say detached or detached?
Detached. Well, yeah, the porte cocheres are attached. They're kind of integrated into the house design a lot of the times.
I agree.
So.
And that's intentional, because, just to reduce it to the most salient points, I did prepare some small items in comparison to the item-by-item analysis that I provided for you last time. And for me, these are the salient points. There's nothing in the current guidelines that actually prohibits the proposed structure or feature as designed. Number 2, the current or historic garage cannot safely fit 2 cars. You will see that in this photographic documentation. The last photographs provided give you dimensions and a view of the inside of that garage. Number 3, the owner desires protection from the elements and safe proximity to the primary building and the ability to protect their property investment. Number 4, the proposal is completely reversible and does not damage any existing historic fabric. Number 5, the proposal is visually compatible with the district and the property. Number 6, the proposal is minimally visible, entirely invisible from the approach to the east and west, and only visible head-on from the driveway. And number 7, regardless of who owns this property, the feature is an asset that will keep the property as an attractive investment into the foreseeable future. I think this is the kind of a change that's respectful and has taken into consideration compatibility while differentiating itself and not pretending to be historic.
I have one comment. We were talking earlier that typically structures like this, they're behind the back of that line of the house, are more acceptable. Is the reason why it couldn't be slid further back? I mean, when you get out of the car, there's not a cover.
Right. So if you'll take a look at page of the mock-up, On page 4, there's a photograph that shows the tape being pulled from the edge of the concrete, which is in alignment with the face of the back wall of the primary building. And where the red arrow is the end of the size of the proposed structure. And you can see its proximity to the only mature tree that's in the backyard. My concern would be that if we push it further back, that we would impact that tree because we do have to put a foundation underneath the posts. Another reason for not pushing it all the way back into the backyard is to take advantage of the protection that the existing structures offer from the elements, since this is an open structure and it just has a roof. And number 3 is that this location is actually less visible than one that would be further back and possibly be visible from the side street.
Right. Okay. Makes sense.
I understand all of your concerns or your list, but I would just say it goes to number 1, carports aren't allowed. The neighborhood wants to deny it. Staff wants to deny it. And I think anybody, the reasons that you've listed after that would just, if we listed those as unique circumstances, then the next person would just be able to list those same reasons, and we would have more similar structures. I don't know how we could stop anybody in the future if they came in with a well-designed carport and they gave us these very same reasons. How would we, and I don't think that we want to start it, but I don't think that we could stop it.
Kay, could you clarify the no carport?
I mean,
comment?
we've
talked about this
discussed it many times.
Yeah.
It's not in the guidelines, but it goes against the accessory structure. It's in front. There's more reasons why.
It's not in there per se.
It doesn't say carport. No, it does not say we can't have carports. But when we say, well, it could, in this instance, it'd be easier, I think, to have another garage in the backyard than it would be to have this in front of the house.
I think that's an interesting point that you make, because obviously another garage is going to be a much more solid structure and it's going to be much more visible. Whether it's a garage or an addition or a cabana or anything else, it's going to be much heavier and much more visible.
But we have approved extra garages where we had actually a unique garage that could no longer function as a garage because of its location. It had been in the side of the house, had trees. They would have had to cut the trees down to reuse the original garage, and then they built another garage. So I'm not saying it would be approved. I'm just saying that that would fall closer in the guidelines, in my opinion, than this would. That's all.
To Alan's question, you're right. The guidelines do not say the word carport. We don't have a prohibition on carport. We generally reference the guidelines for accessory structures when we see proposals for parking covers and that sort of thing. And the guidelines encourage accessory structures to be located generally in the backyard, to be located in a location that is minimally visible or not visible from the street, unless it is approximating a historic accessory structure of some type. And then kind of swinging the other way, the guidelines do not support constructing a porte-cochere where there was not a porte-cochere historically. And the same goes for things like trellises and pergolas on the front of the house in a visible location. So it is challenging that our accessory structure guidelines are quite broad and in many ways are written to appear to reference things like a tool shed, not a parking cover. But that's generally the direction that we get from the guidelines.
This is almost like a detached porte-cochere because it's so close to the house. It appears to be part of the house mass. It's not like it's sitting out by itself. So,
I think that's almost the argument with the comparison, to the other houses showing the porte-cocheres. But the kind of the effect would be the same. So,
did you say that that the guidelines don't support building a new porte cochere.
Correct.
Right.
It says don't.
Don't do that.
So out of all of the guidelines that could be applied to this structure when you consider trellises, pergolas, accessory structures, and porte cocheres, there is only one guideline that has restrictive language. All of the rest of them are permissive language, saying should instead of shall. And that one thing says that you shall not construct a porte cochere where one had not existed historically. And that's where I say this is technically not a porte cochere because a porte cochere is physically connected to the structure.
And this is not anymore.
And this is not attached at all.
It was with a
walkway.
but not now.
4.5.11 is a shall. New accessory buildings shall follow the historic side and backyard setback patterns of other accessory buildings on the property in the block or in the historic district.
I stand corrected. However, this one is not outside of the realm of commonplace when it comes to common setbacks on the side yards. And indeed, the current driveway, this structure is constructed within the width of that current driveway. So there's already a paved driveway on the side. I think it's important to point out that the current historic garage cannot safely fit 2 cars, and we've provided dimensions in this attachment.
What are the dimensions?
The inside, the clear opening of the garage door is 15 feet 8 inches. The width inside the garage between the concrete tilt-up walls is 18 feet 1 inch. And the clear height of the garage door is 6'5". And then there are 2 structural beams providing additional support, and the bottom of the garage door open is mounted at about the same height as the garage door height.
How long is the existing garage?
Well, that's a dimension
How
I don't
deep?
have. Wait a minute, we have that, don't we?
I didn't see it, so. I know we talked about it last time, but I don't remember.
Katie, was a guideline if you were able to park, I know we discussed last time, 2 cars or 1 car, if you can't park 1 car?
So when we look at the ordinance where it talks about demolition of a historic garage, one of the criteria that the commission can consider is that it cannot accommodate a single standard size parking space.
I mean, I would almost argue, parking requirements for Oklahoma City, a standard parking spot can be as narrow as 8.5 feet by 18 feet. And,
Yes, and I used to park in those spaces in the employee garage.
Yeah. And 9 foot is kind of the generous standard, I would say, which we, on our projects, we always use 8.5 because you get additional parking.
9 was a standard, 8.5 was compact.
No, compact's 7.5, I think. It's even smaller. But
those are also for
so if you go
parking
with a
garages.
standard parking spot, that's still an inch wider than 2 standard city parking spots.
So you don't know the depth?
I
You
don't.
have that number?
I'm sorry.
I remember it being sufficient for 2 standard-sized parking spaces from last time.
We just didn't, that wasn't our focus. We were
Yeah.
trying to fit
Yeah.
2 cars side by side and be able to open the doors. I mean, the 8.5-foot wide spaces that are in the city employee's garage, if people don't line up just right, you cannot get out of your car. That space becomes unusable. And those are parking garages, not a residential garage, which only has limited parking capacity and ability to move around a vehicle.
Well, I do think if it's 18 by 18 feet, that does fit in a garage, 2 standard-sized vehicles. So many of us have that size garage and are able to fit cars in it. So for that, I mean, that's not a consideration for me, as a reason to approve this other covered parking. As far as the stairs go, yes, they're steep, they're narrow, but we're in a historic district. They're all like that. So I just don't see that as another issue for not parking in the garage and walking up the stairs to take your groceries in. I don't see that as a need for additional covered parking. I hear your arguments, but I don't agree with those points, unfortunately.
It's already a parking space. It's already parking. It's a driveway, and it's parked.
Yeah.
All that's being requested is something to cover it so that the car doesn't get hail damage, or so that it's more convenient. As you know, these neighborhoods are well-to-do neighborhoods, especially Heritage Hills. Suffering is optional, and it's just not, I mean, you know.
I just, you know, I hate to interrupt you, but I think that there is choice here. People choose the house they buy. When you buy a historic house, everybody has to look at, is the laundry in the basement? Is there a first floor bathroom? Will my car fit in the garage? You know, do I want to be across the street from a grocery store or whatever? So the choice is not, the choice has been made by the owner to tackle that house and those problems, but we have to address what they want to do with the guidelines. And I would make a motion to deny this.
Then I would request a continuance.
Okay.
Okay.
What date? April 3rd or May 1st?
May 1st.
We have a continuance left, Katie? Yes. Okay. I move to continue HPCA 18-00205 to the May 1st.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, been continued. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next,
HPCA 18-00212 at 224 Northwest 19th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Megan Ofdahl for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace windows elective, and 2, remove south door at east side elective. This is a proposal to replace non-historic windows on the side and back of the house, and to enclose a door opening that is on the side of the house but faces to the rear. Staff's only concern with this application is that the way the drawings show it, walling off that door opening would bisect one of the historic windows. Our understanding from talking with the applicant is that that's not actually the intent. We just didn't have documentation that showed that quite clearly enough. So
it's basically just filling in where the door is.
yep, you're filling in exactly the existing door opening with brick that will match the brick on the house.
Yes, exactly. So for this, the door was, first of all, non-historic. Originally, that porch was open. The porch was finished at some time prior before me purchasing the property. You see these windows right here with, full glass. It has, many panes, right there. And so they go around the whole porch on the north side as well as the east side. There is there's a door, however, on the south side of the building, which is not visible at all from any side of the property, that was also put in there later. Do you have the pictures of the concrete and everything like that, too, those ones with the door and the concrete?
The commission has the pictures that you've provided in the packet.
Perfect.
They just aren't all in the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay, great. So on that, they had added that door later. They had taken out the brick that was on the porch because it went about, halfway up as, on the rest of the house. And so they put a door there, and the door, in order to fit the steps, they weren't able to put steps that are safe or, that not built to code at all. The last step is over 2 feet tall. It's a very tall step. It's not safe, and to build it out safely would require you to cover up the window that's on the bottom, in the basement window. So our proposal would be to, take off those steps. Also, I would point out that it does not seem that there was any sort of HP approval on this. This work was done. So my idea is to take off the steps and to simply take the brick, which is from the porch originally, in the garage, and just brick up that door and close it off. There's already one other door on that structure. The whole house has 5 exterior doors currently, 2 on that porch alone. Several houses in the neighborhood I've looked at, they don't have the door in the back as well. So I just propose to take out that door, use the brick from the original structure to brick it back up, and well, that's about it.
Are you proposing to remove the steps?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you proposing to remove the steps?
Yes, Mr. Brown.
I don't see in the...
It's not on the agenda.
Not listed on the agenda.
Oh,
as
I'm
an
so
item.
sorry.
As an
No,
item.
it may not be your fault. It may just have been a...
Oh, no,
It
it
may
probably
just
is
been
my fault.
We may have just miscommunicated.
Sure.
I
That
can see
is
why. Those are-
potentially something that could be an administrative approval item, since it's
Oh, I
pretty
understand.
clearly not
Okay.
Historic, yeah.
fabric. That
Those
if-
are the wildest steps I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah, yeah.
I have a question, though. The brick that's in front of the steps, it looks like it's part of the original design. So what was meant to go back in that? I mean, do you think that there was a door and maybe just some wood steps originally? Because why else would they built that side
There's
porch
three
like
steps
that?
look like they're about 6 inches.
Right.
And then there's the two that are,
Right, but I mean, if you would have built, if somebody would have had wood steps, they wouldn't have probably cared if it went in front of the window. I'm just saying, if you
Yeah.
look at the brick column, why was that there if it wasn't meant for a door?
I'm not familiar enough, I think, with the construction or typical design of that back area. I think you would probably know more about that than me, Mary Jo.
Because I
But,
guess what we're saying, though, in order to, the findings say that the door and opening are not original. That's my concern. Is it original or not original? It
If you
appears
look
that
at
it was
the
a porch.
Sanborn
It was
maps...
a porch originally, right?
But in the findings, it says the evidence suggests that the door and opening are not original to the dwelling.
If you look at the Sanborn maps, Joe, you may or may not agree with me on that. It is my impression, comparing those to the existing footprint of the house, that that area itself is an addition to the structure.
What area?
The porch area.
Okay, I'm not, the porch area.
Or may have it just
I
been...
could be wrong.
So you're saying they cut a door? Cut a door?
You're saying the whole porch is not original.
That is my belief.
The enclosure of the porch. There's probably a railing there.
I see what you're saying.
But
Typically, covered porches are shown on the Sanborn maps.
Right.
And I don't believe I located one on this particular one, so it's my belief that despite the fact that this structure is obviously old, that it is not original to the dwelling.
But if it was over, it still has gained...
1955 is our
Right.
latest one, so you're correct. It could very well have gained historic significance, but the door itself is not visible from the street.
Yeah, the door,
I'm not
there
really-
is a
right.
door on the porch. Oh, go ahead.
It really wasn't closing the door that I was that concerned about, but just using the brick and doing something else. It seems like there's a simpler solution. That would be my only... I mean, the window I'm not opposed to. Seems like maybe there's a simpler solution than not really sure what you're going to brick up.
So the room is a rectangle. This L of it has all windows. This is just wall from the inside. That's, the part of the house that comes out. The second story, it just goes straight down as a wall. And so there's this opening right here. It also sits back a few feet. There's kind of the pillar, and it sits back a few feet. Then there's the door, and then there's the very unsafe steps. So, exactly, exactly. So right there. And so the idea would just be to remove the door, remove the steps, have a mason clean up all the brick, remove all the cement, and rebuild that area. Just repair that to get all the old cement from those steps up, and to then just continue that brick, right up so that you wouldn't have an opening at all. You would just have the brick that was from the porch, which might have even come from that area. I don't know where all that came from.
So all the steps would be removed?
Yes.
And brick would go from the ground all the way up? It looks like above the door there's some siding or something.
I'm sorry.
Oh, there's not, no, it does not run into the window.
Is there a drawing or something that...
Well, the
It
door
would be
is...
flush with the door here.
The
Where the
drawings-
door is would go straight
Right,
down.
so there would be, you would go back, there would
Yep,
still
it would be an inset.
A little inset.
Where the door is.
The floor plan's not correct.
Okay.
Right. So the applicant was hoping that the commission could approve the windows as proposed, and either approve the door with conditions that some additional documentation be worked out with staff, to include in the CA or continue that if the commission feels like we need to see it a second time.
Well, I would make a motion to approve if staff works with the applicant to get some type of drawing that shows what they're going to do to that specific area. So the concrete would run on the ground, so you would have to pour maybe new concrete around the corner?
Potentially, probably. Luckily, it's, somewhat contained, so we won't have to do the whole driveway, but we'll probably have to do a little bit back there where those steps were removed. Either that, or I thought about putting maybe a planter box or, something like that would cover it and, just be kind of nice. Again, not visible from the street, but I think planter boxes are allowed anyway, just if I put a little.
But if you're going to build one into this, I think that
You need to see drawings.
you need some drawings.
Well, I think the next step would be that if it's approved, we first need to get that off, kind of see what's going on in there, see if it can be, and once we take those steps down, I'll be curious to see, how what the brick looks like under there, and if it'll look good to just save it, or if we, need, right now the plan is to have the mason remove it, restore it, put it back in, but, we'll probably have to see what it looks like and what that concrete underneath looks like. And then if it's really bad, we'll probably have to re-pour. And then I know we have to come back here, I guess, to, get approval for that and the matching of it and things like that.
I think staff can approve the final drawings if it's
I think
clear what you're going to do. So
Okay.
maybe removing, do we need to, I don't know, do we want to
So I
approve
think that condition
removing
is already
in the thing? Okay. Okay, I make a motion to approve HBCA 1800212, item 1 and item 2 with the specific findings as noted by staff in the staff report and the condition noted by staff in the staff report.
So, you need something about drawings, or?
It says,
It's in there, okay.
it's in the
I'm sorry.
conditions.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, so moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
There were two? Okay, 2 nays. Okay. Okay, you've been approved.
Okay, thank you. The windows too, right? Everything's good?
Yes.
All right, next.
HPCA 19-00001 has been withdrawn. HPCA 19-2 at 104 Northwest 20th, Heritage Hills East, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Phoebe Vaughan for Mary Vaughan, Red Bud Restoration LLC for certificate of appropriateness to one demolished house elective.
Hughes, okay, do we still have Anila went to the restroom?
We're good.
Good, okay.
Yep.
She'll be right back.
Yes. Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. My name's Wesley Vaughan. Phoebe Vaughan's my wife, and Mary Vaughan's my mother. I live at 2100 North Robinson Avenue, which is on the corner of Robinson and 20th Street, just down the block from this property. This past December, these two houses on the end of our block came up for sale. The real estate listing on the MLS mentioned possibly commercial value for the property, and I don't know if that would ever have happened, but our original intent with purchasing these properties were to try and improve the neighborhood and the property value of our street. So we actually bought both of these two properties next to each other. You can see the other one in the distance, which is currently rented and occupied. This house was sold as is, and after purchasing it, we were originally going to fix it up. My parents had moved out of state for them to be able to come back and visit and stay. And we were walking around in there, and my heel caught on part of the tongue and groove wood floor inside the house, and it popped up due to termite damage. And we've since investigated. We've gotten 2 structural engineer reports and a termite inspection, which estimated that approximately 82% of the wood within the house was damaged by termites. Furthermore, the crawl space of the house is about a foot, and so it makes it extremely difficult to access underneath the house to do work. And in the structural engineer report, the stem wall, the foundation around the house is deteriorating. And so that's the basis of why we are proposing to demolish the house. At this point, we're concerned that somebody could, potentially enter the house, or while doing work on it, that it could either, if we were to attempt to jack up the house, it might lead to further damage to it, like collapsing. We've actually contacted 4 contractors within the neighborhood that work in the neighborhood, and 3 of them declined, and the one that did come out basically declined to even take on the project due to the concern for the liability if something were to happen to it, if they were to try and raise it. One that did come out basically indicated that it would probably be in excess. They said it could be over maybe $150,000 or $200,000. They didn't actually give us a written proposal for that.
Well, okay, thank you. So one structural inspection, a building inspector, and a termite inspection. All basically saying that. It's a shame.
So you didn't have you had no idea when you bought the house, you didn't have any inspections, you didn't have an engineer at that time, you didn't have an appraisal, nothing?
No, it was a cash purchase. In hindsight, hindsight's 20/20. Basically, the week after we bought it, we got a notice that it was in code violations. It was Inspector Hubble, had stuck a notice on the window, and when we looked at it, we realized that there had been several notices stuck and removed. You could see the excess, the glue that was from the back of the paper. The way that the owner had sold it was basically they took bids for like one I think it was 1 week or 2 weeks, and so we kind of jumped into it just thinking that it was a good deal, and then sort of, and also wanting to have some control over the neighborhood and hopefully improve the value of it. And then when we kind of delved into it more, came to these conclusions. I've actually contacted Wood Window Rescue, and we like actually the outside of the house we think is very attractive, from the front aspect of it. And I was hoping to try and preserve the bricks and the remaining windows that are usable, and potentially try to use them in a future, if something were to be built, use them in the house in the future.
Salvage?
Salvage, yeah. Salvage, sorry.
Yep.
This is a house that I walked through when it was for sale with the contractor. We considered buying it. It was going to take a little more money than we wanted, but I do believe it is salvageable. For that reason, and because of my experience, I would not be able to approve demolition. I would even suggest a site visit for a chance, give the commissioners a chance to walk through it, maybe with a contractor, or I don't know if we can do that or not, but...
Might be justified. The house demolition is something we don't do.
Right.
frequently.
I think we want to kind of check off all the boxes, cover all of our tracks before we consider a demolition of a historic structure. So that's what I'd like to see, a site visit. If anybody has any other thoughts?
So continue it?
I think we should let the neighborhood.
Rita, can you speak to how we do site visits? We haven't done one in a very long time. I don't remember exactly what that's
Been that long, huh?
process.
You could do a site visit with the permission of the property owner and a group that is small enough to avoid a quorum. You could not speak to each other about what you saw. You could ask questions of the property owner if you chose, but it would be better if you asked questions of staff and had staff ask those questions of the property owner so that all of you got the same information at the same time. Other than that, you could have a site visit under those limited circumstances.
Okay.
Well, can we have an expert?
Could you
I mean,
hire
can we
an
have
expert?
other outside experts with us and ask them questions?
Staff?
Other than staff?
No. You could not do that.
Can't hire anybody.
We don't have any.
I mean, is there an inspector that could maybe join, like an Oklahoma City building inspector, something like that?
In your packet, there is a city inspector that's given information,
Maybe, his name is in there. Maybe we ask him to go
and the
along.
actual report is there. I think, though, that you should work that through staff rather than contacting that inspector independently.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we can work with that department and see if we could, how we could coordinate something with him.
So is a site visit okay with you?
I mean, I guess so, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
We have to have your permission, you just heard, so.
yeah, I mean, that would be fine. I guess enter at your own risk. I mean, some of the floors.
That's a good point, yeah.
I mean, that's one of my
Liability.
concerns is, I mean, we're currently paying insurance, on the property in case, for liability in case something were to happen. And I don't know if you all have any recommendations for, securing the porch. Some of the wood is pretty rotten, and on the inside there are certain rooms that I wouldn't. I honestly don't feel comfortable going into because the wood is rotten, particularly the bathroom.
It's interesting, Neela was in there in November.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe October, November. When did you buy it?
I think we
sometime.
closed in December.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, well, like I said, I mean, it needs a lot of work and more than we wanted to spend, but it's not in a condition, I felt, where demolition was the only option.
Well, so we wanted to do the site visit?
Is there some way to potentially, rebuild, or is that an option? I mean, have you all ever approved rebuilding it where certain aspects are salvaged? I'm just curious.
You can rebuild, you're talking about from ground up rebuild?
To a degree, yeah.
So the guidelines, we allow replacement in kind of historic materials anytime when those are deteriorated and need to be replaced. Obviously, you can replace whatever you want on the interior, and that doesn't come through us anyway. But as far as exterior elements of the home, you can certainly replace those in kind. There's a threshold where that's actually considered ordinary maintenance and repair. I think at this point you'd be beyond that threshold, but it would still be something we could approve. We also, the guidelines allow for complete reconstruction when a historic property has been or can be accurately documented. Now, that would be dependent upon a demolition being approved. But
I mean, like what we ran into with the house next door, they both have less than a foot of crawl space, and there's a leak underneath it now. And we've had to have part of the wood floor inside the house cut up to gain access to it to get to the leak. And so that's part of the problem with this house is the way it's constructed. It makes it, where you would have to actually try to raise the whole house. And there's concern that due to the termite damage, it wouldn't survive that, and we can't find a contractor who would take on that risk.
Is there any other, do you want to consider a walkthrough, or is there another motion somebody like?
Well, I think a walkthrough might be helpful for sure. And I wonder, my initial impression as well, I saw the house, I was like, what, you want to demolish this? Looks like it
has a lot of
great
curb
house.
appeal, and we love the way it looks from the outside.
Right.
And would, if we were to replace or rebuild it, we would want to, preserve that aspect, and the bricks and the windows and things like that.
And really what my point is that initial impressions can sometimes, lead you astray a little bit. For example, I think you and Neil probably both share the same sentiment that, man, this is the great property, could be a good investment. You know, and maybe Neela maybe had the experience to look through it and say maybe it would take a little bit too much. I think something like termites is kind of tough to determine from a walkthrough sometimes anyways. You know, termites, there's certain things underneath the slab that you just, you know, unless you have a report. I know you've gotten a couple engineering reports, you've gotten termite inspections.
I didn't see, I mean, they have like actual tubes going up the walls and things.
Right. Like I'm sure you maybe wouldn't have purchased it, or at least maybe, you know, who knows?
I don't know what would end up happening to it. And that's, I mean, I live basically like 3 or 4 houses down. And I mean, you know, we're kind of on the edge of Heritage Hills. I've lived in the neighborhood over 10 years, almost 11 years now. I mean, that was my primary goal, is trying to improve the value of our neighborhood and the safety of it. And it's just having like abandoned structures concerning to me.
So I'm going to turn it over to Neela now. So sorry to have to leave. Go ahead.
Well, go ahead, sorry. Yeah.
The other aspect, though, would be when we have proof of what something looks like, then the guidelines, you know, would be that if it did come to demolition, that you could be required to document what's there and put it back exactly. So maybe that might have something to do with your decision in, you know, trying to demolish this if perhaps you're thinking, well, because what I hear you saying, in the report the architect said built back exactly. So that was going to be my question today. But what I hear you saying is that there would be improvements, maybe you'd use some salvage material, but we actually have documentation of the exact house. So there would really be no reason for a new design for the exterior.
Yeah,
So,
that would that would be a much more I mean, not only financially viable option, but also, I mean, just in terms of trying to find a contractor. They basically said it could take a year to try to go in and redo it bit by bit. That they could run, you know how fixing up old houses can be. You run into more and more problems and things like that. And it could be, they estimated like probably, they said like 3 to 4 times as much as going and like rebuilding the exact structure, which could take, I mean, maybe like 6 months is what they were telling us to do. So.
Okay, so we've agreed on a site visit. Randy, we know the neighborhood's against demolition. We have your comments here. Did you have anything to add?
Just that we have had many houses worse than this. I currently own a house at 2215 Broadway that was worse than this. With a 1-foot crawl space, I took out the floors, or I'm taking them out. That's the way you get to the stem wall. You take all the floors out. That's how you fix all the termite damage. You take all the sheetrock off, or plaster, whatever it is. You can get to all of this. This is a simple frame structure. All right? We view that the neighborhood had met long about this with extensive deliberations, more than anything else on the agenda today. And demolitions are permanent. Okay, this destroys the character of the neighborhood. I own 6 pieces of property on this block. This damages my property interests across the entire neighborhood. It damages all of our property interests when you tear down historic structures. We cannot be more emphatic that we do not want this house torn down. We want it repaired, but we do not want it torn down. That really undermines the whole point of historic preservation and the ordinance. And that is what our neighborhood discussed. Our entire board met on this and discussed this matter. This is a very serious issue for us. Again, demolition is the most extreme position this commission can take.
No, I mean, I think we all agree that it's a big decision, so I think a site visit is a good idea. We can all kind of familiarize ourselves with the project a little bit better.
In our family, we own 4 pieces of property, essentially, on these blocks now. And, I mean, yeah, we're trying to work with you all.
You have the same, probably, intentions. You want to improve the, you know, the
Definitely. I mean, I have a newborn baby, my wife, and we live on the corner. It's just having vacant structures that sit for years and years. I don't know when the last time somebody's lived in this house, but judging by the contents and some of the mail, it looks like it's been over 10 years.
Okay. Well, we need to move forward. Okay. Angela, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I did not speak with Ms. Vaughan about the consequences of demolition and reconstruction. I don't know if you're aware that modern codes may put you in a position where you cannot exactly replicate this structure. So when you demolish it, despite the fact that we go to great lengths to detail it before you do, you may not be in a position where you can reproduce the existing product, and so that may be something you want to consider fairly carefully.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Debbie, did you want to say anything? I saw you stand. Mm-hmm.
Just going to echo what Randy said. Owning property in that neighborhood, I know I've had houses that I have redone that have had termite damage and had been ignored for a long time. Even the dining room peaked in the middle with oak flooring, and we had to rip it all down to the joists. But that's just one of the things you have to do, and you can do. The commissioners are right. These houses are not past hope for the most part. They have redwood siding, they have oak floors, but you have to go to some measures to preserve them, and that's what this whole thing is about, preservation. And these houses, once they are rehabbed, are beautiful little houses that you'll never get any other way, any other time. They'll never look the same. So when you bought into a preservation district, you brought into the idea of preserving them.
Thank you. Debbie, would you state your name for the record? Sorry.
Debbie Blackburn.
Thank you. So you can work with staff to coordinate a time for site visits. So we need to continue this to what date? Probably the May meeting? Because can we get site visits that soon? And whatever, yeah.
Well, let's see. The next meeting is April 3rd. I don't know that we need any new documentation from the applicant. So
Can
it
we
really
do
is just a matter
May?
of-
I'm not
May?
available to come April 3rd.
Okay.
Would that be okay?
Okay, nope, that's totally fine. So we can do the May 1st.
May 1st.
Meeting, and then between now and then, we'll arrange for a site visit.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 19-00002 to the May 1st?
Yeah.
May 1st hearing?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Klaus Raymond Phillips, seconded by Suzanne Broadbent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
HPCA 19-00006 at 1012 Northwest 17th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Stephen Skinner Benchmark Homes for certificate of appropriateness to 2, replace fence, elective, 3, demolish garage, elective, 4, construct garage, elective, 5, reconfigure flat roof to hip roof at rear of structure and replace roof material, elective, 7, replace shutters, elective, 8, reconfigure windows in existing addition, elective, 9, replace porch railing, elective, 13, replace windows on east side, elective, and 18, replace basement windows, elective. I believe the only items on this application that staff had any conditions on, or that staff did not recommend approval for, but recommended continuance, were the proposal to construct a garage, because it does exceed the kind of baseline allowed size for a garage that's in the guidelines. And then there was a continuance recommended on the reconfiguration of windows on the side of the house, having to do with how far back they were set from the front and just whether or not that was appropriate. I think the applicant was ready to speak about each of those items.
Hello, Steve Skinner, the owner. We'll start with the garage, Kitty. Is that where you'd like?
Let's first start, let's see what commissioners' comments, if they have any to start, and then you can speak directly to those. Any comments? No. Okay.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
The shutters, the ones that you're proposing are some type of board and batten shutters?
Yes.
And I would, I'm not in agreement that those are fitting for the house. In fact, this type of house generally didn't have shutters. So I would recommend my recommendation would be if you want shutters where there were shutters, that you would be, I think, you should be limited to what's there, or not have shutters, or a different style. But the board and batten is not really a fitting shutter style for this house, in my opinion.
Okay, the two historical shutters I've been able to, when you research sourcing historical shutters, board and batten and panel shutters are the two typical shutters that come up. And so based on that, there's two options, of what they're...
Well, there's hundreds of styles of shutters.
Yes, but when you...
I mean, somebody selling a shutter and calling it historic doesn't necessarily mean it's an option for historic homes.
True, I mean...
But the board and batten is not really for, I mean, this is kind of a mixed style. It could have looked kind of more like a colonial home, maybe originally, or a prairie style, or, I don't know, Foursquare, I'm not really sure. But I just don't think the board and batten shutters would be appropriate.
I second that. I think that's the one comment I had when I was looking at the packet. Those kind of stood out to me. I was like, those don't seem like they would fit the house at all from the style.
So, I mean, I would just leave them off. If you look at the house next door, you might look at other houses in the neighborhood. If they don't have them, then don't put them back on there.
Okay, yeah, there's very few homes that have shutters in the neighborhood.
I would leave them off, because they were just something really during the 50s and whatever. People thought they'd decorate their house with them. I mean, shutters aren't even necessary in Oklahoma unless you have a colonial style or something like that, where it's actually indicative of that architectural style. But anyway,
Yes, the only goal was to provide something up there. There's so much blank space of siding. Once you move that, there's only the two windows. You don't really have anything.
I think that's why people did it, but anyway, I would say if you want to replace them exactly like they are, that's an option, but I would not be for the board and batten shutters.
Would you replace them exactly as they are? Is that an option for you?
They're a louvered shutter, which seems even less appropriate than the board and batten.
But we can't prevent you from replacing them. Yeah,
they're a faux louver that's not very attractive, to be honest. And so if you go, going back in kind is going to be.
Well, we can't make you change something. That's kind of what I'm saying is you can repair it or replace it like it is, but my recommendation would be to leave it off. Perhaps.
Are you taking off vinyl siding?
No, there is no vinyl siding on the property.
I couldn't remember if this was one like that. I was going to say, perhaps when you start doing some work, if the trim around those windows is actually more substantial than what we see with the shutters, maybe it wouldn't seem like so much blank space. But.
No, I believe the shutters are probably installed in the 50s or 60s, and they're wood, and they've just.
I think when you put the new columns and everything in the porch, I think it'll look nice. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
But my other question is on your removing the windows on the east side on the second floor on what was, like, I don't know, maybe we call them a sleeping porch, but whatever it is, it has the 4 windows on each side. Is that, I looked at your floor plan, it looks like there's a bathroom there, but do you have it's not even going to go back in the same place as the one there. I don't know. I think that's really going to change the appearance.
The window's not going back in the same place?
I'm sorry. Well, I mean, you have 4 of them, and then the new design calls for it to be kind of just placed in the middle or something.
It was designed to stack over the existing window on the first floor.
Over the existing window on the bottom.
And the removal of the windows is based on having enough wall space to make a bathroom operate.
Right.
And the interior configuration is, the house has 2 additions on the back, so what would be the master bathroom is actually the complete footprint of one of those additions. And so those walls can't really be removed structurally because they're exterior walls on different structures. So removing them is not as simple as removing a partition wall. It's sort of like trying to take an outside wall down. And then additionally, that particular exterior wall is constructed in a way where there are only 3 floor-to-ceiling studs on that wall. The windows themselves are built in a way where the header of the window is mortised in, and the jambs continue all the way to the top plate, and so the window is actually load-bearing, which is something sort of unique to me I haven't seen before. So I have some concerns about, structural soundness on that wall as well, with the way it's currently.
Is the other wall just like that? Because
It
there's
is.
identical.
Well, I'm assuming so. We stripped that wall to look inside, and I got concerned about, it's actually on the interior sheathed in 1x, and, horizontal 1x12s. And I'm a little concerned about removing too much of that before we can actually stabilize the structure.
I mean, even though it's on the back 30%, it's still the appearance of that, I think, just, it just doesn't look like, it just looks like too few windows, that single window. Could you put 2 windows there?
There's a location in actually the stool closet where you could add a window. These windows are not very visible from the street. I think staff has a photo. Their first photo shows a picture of from the front of the house, and that's looking at the driveway, and those windows are around behind that bay window. So there's a 4-foot bay as well as a 1-foot offset that kind of conceal those windows from street view.
Is there a bay window on both stories?
Yes, that
So it looks
continues
like-
up.
Okay.
It's a little difficult to tell, but the
Yeah.
far left window is actually at a 45-degree angle.
Okay.
So staff is recommending denying the garage. What's your situation there?
The garage, my understanding is the garage is being denied because of the overall square footage. And we've made the garage deeper. The width is fairly consistent, but we've made it a little deeper to allow for a larger vehicle or for bike storage or lawn equipment to kind of, it seems a more practical way to store, your outdoor goods rather than have to construct a separate shed and have that in your yard as well. You're going to have a certain amount of outdoor stuff that you're going to want to keep. And the garage is not, it's a 2-car garage. It's a little deeper than normal. I think we're 4 feet deeper than the previous, and we're relocating it a little bit. The existing garage is actually over the property line in the back.
So you're at 510, and we usually recommend 450?
Can you make it 450? Can you
We
bring it
could.
within the guidelines? And
We can. I mean, it's.
I think that would be what.
I mean, we can make it. You can
That's-
make anything. That works. It's just. It seems.
But it's
It
just the
seems more
guidelines.
efficient to do it this way rather than come back and need a shed as well later.
I know, but that's the number. I mean, that's the size that the guidelines ask us, that we'd stay within. So, I mean, if you can make the garage that, I mean, there are lots that size, and I get an SUV in mind. So,
I'm not arguing that it's not
Okay.
it's not feasible. I mean, I'm arguing that it's more practical to do it this way. I mean, there's not,
I mean, we can also consider with the garages, we do have a guideline of 450 square feet or 5% of the lot, whichever one is larger. But we can also consider the location of the garage. Is it visible from the right-of-way? I think we've approved, a little more square foot, especially if it's deeper, because you can't see that from anywhere. Just as reference, we can look at those.
Do you have access to the garage from the alley?
No, the alley has been closed.
Okay.
Well, it's been abandoned by the city.
Okay.
Closed is, it hadn't
Right.
been vacated, but they no longer maintain it.
I think Alan did some calculations to indicate that my calculation on the size of the garage is slightly off. Rather than being 510, it's more like 490, I think. I have not discussed with the applicant or worked with him towards looking at the established patterns of garages on the block or within the district. I know that on occasion we have approved garages that were somewhat in excess of the recommended sizes based on locations and sizes of other garages and how much of the yard is hidden and that sort of thing.
I do understand that, but those are in the report. I mean, those
Yes.
justifications for one applicant are in the report, and I guess that's where I was going with that.
Yes, I understand. Simply, if you want staff to work with the applicant towards anything else, we're happy to do so.
I would kind of argue, the width is pretty typical. It's just a little bit deeper, and it's not on a corner lot, and it is as far back as it can go. So to me, I don't think it has a real negative impact on the neighborhood or the surrounding buildings or anything. But
The garage will be moving away from the property line to some extent, and currently it's not highly visible from the street, so it will become less visible from the street as that work is done.
Well, perhaps we can justify using data, that goes along with the guidelines, like other garages. Maybe the staff can help.
I'm
us
having a hard time
document that.
distinguishing you from the noise. My hearing's not great.
Linda, it's hard to hear you today. I'm not sure if your mic is high enough, but
It might not be.
what she's saying is we could continue that item to give you time to work with staff to, one, either look at the setbacks and the sizes of surrounding garages to justify a larger garage, or to work with staff and come up with a garage that's 450 square feet. Is that right?
Yes.
I would say that the garages, which may be visible in staff photos and are in some photos I've provided, the homes on either side have larger garages than the garage proposed.
Okay.
And the garage to the east is actually a newer garage. The homeowner's been there 9 years. He said he didn't build it, but it couldn't have been there much longer than he was.
Unless someone wants to approve or deny the garage, I think a continuance would be helpful for you, if you agree to that.
Do we have documentation for demolition of the garage?
We have documentation. We do not have a structural engineer's report or anything.
No, we
Garage,
have
do we? We just
photos of the garage.
we
I
have
don't really know
photos.
that it's necessary to have a structural engineer look at it, given the actual condition of it. It's so far gone. Yeah.
There's basically
photos
no
of the back
back
and the
wall.
interior as well provided.
So
It has no foundation. It's on slab. It's below grade. Water runs from the front of the garage out the back. It's blown the back wall out. There's been multiple attempts to reframe it. The slab has been capped, but then the cap is broken as well.
And staff, you recommended demolition or approved?
We did
Recommended
recommend approval of
And
the-
what were your thoughts on that?
We felt like met the criteria that talks about being infeasible to repair without the loss of all or nearly all historic fabric, just based on, even just on the amount that has already been lost, what's left of the structure as it stands.
Okay, any other discussion on any of the other items?
I guess if we're agreed on some of the items, we could approve some of them and continue the garage, or is that?
Yep, you can approve everything that everybody's good with, and then just continue the garage. And it sounds like that's a pretty quick turnaround kind of thing if you wanted to just continue that to the April 3rd meeting.
Yes.
Because it's going to be
Yeah,
fairly
it wouldn't be.
simple.
Yeah, because the plan alteration will be minor. And I'll consult with staff about whether or not to try to bring evidence to justify the current sizing or whether to resize.
Okay.
On the shutters, could we put in that, I would want to deny the board and batten, and if they want to submit another one with a continuance to be considered, then.
So we can administratively approve replacement in kind of shutters, and we can administratively approve removal of the shutters. So we could continue that as well. And between now and a future meeting, the applicant can work with staff on how to address the
Is there
shutters.
something that, what would you prefer to do?
We'll do a continuance. I'm going to have to come back for the garage anyway, So we'll do the continuance.
No, I don't think so, is what she's saying, that we could work it out with staff.
Well, we would continue it, rather than approve it or deny it today, they could continue it, and then we can come to a administrative approval solution for the shutters.
Then if you're, depending on the board's feeling on it, if it's denied, then we'll go without shutters.
Okay.
But I guess what, you would still have to come back for the garage, correct?
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Right.
No, Katie's
that
saying
was
that
the
they
point.
can
I was just told I
administratively.
wasn't coming back for the garage, so don't come back for the shutters.
Why are we coming back for the garage?
I thought we were continuing the garage to come back.
Because of the size?
We were going to either justify,
Oh,
my understanding
similar
was the applicant
garages.
was going to
Okay.
either justify a larger size and bring that back to the commission or revise
Okay.
the design.
Okay. So then do we have a motion to continue item 4 and item 8? I'm sorry, item 4 and item 7, the shutters and the construction of the garage?
Make a motion.
Okay.
To continue.
To the April?
April 3rd.
April 3rd meeting. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Joe Meacham and a second by Clauserum and Phillip. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So you'll work with staff on those 2 items that were continued. Everything else on the list has been approved today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, we didn't make a motion.
We didn't make a motion.
Oh, we didn't?
Yeah, I was going to
Okay, that was the next one, sorry.
I was going to take it.
Yeah, just walk away fast.
I think that's the next motion. I'm just jumping ahead. Okay, do we have another motion for the rest of the items? So 4 and 7 have been continued. There was no other comment on the other items, so. Yeah.
Well, there are conditions on a couple of the items, and I assume you're in agreement with those?
Yes.
Like item 2, the fence, changing the height of the fence on the east side, I believe, making it located 1 foot forward, okay. Oh, yeah, an accurate site plan with the fence, I'm sorry.
Have you read the
Thinking of it.
conditions? You look surprised.
Well, because we provided the site plan, another site plan showing the actual location of the fence, and the fence is located, I think the rule is 40% back. We've got it located 38% back. That difference in 2% is based on a box window that sticks out from the house, so we slid it just in front of that window to put that window in the backyard.
So has that condition then been met?
It has, yes.
Oh,
It has
okay.
submitted, since the staff report was written, a number of items have been submitted. So a number of the items that request additional documentation have in fact been documented. Some of them have not been documented sufficiently, but staff is confident that we can acquire that documentation prior to release of the CA. And so we're comfortable with the commission approving.
But you're not issuing a CA without the documentation anyway, right?
Right.
Correct.
And have we gotten the window documentation? Windows?
We do not currently have any documentation for the basement windows at all.
The basement windows are not,
What are you planning?
they're non-existent. We're going to use wood window resource and do a single pane. There's an existing basement window that is on the back of the original home, which is underneath one of the additions, which is going to serve as the model for the other ones, which is a single pane hinged on one side with the lock on the regular window lock on the other, and there'll be a wood window. And we'll submit the wood window drawings. I have some basic wood window resource flyers that give the dimension of those if you guys are interested, but they're the windows they always provide. And I'll provide that to staff, but I don't have actual sizing on the windows right now. They had rotted away and deteriorated, so there'll be some reconstruction of the existing frames as well.
So is there a condition on the windows already?
So let's see, what does that already say? Yes, I think it says for that documentation to be submitted to staff prior to release of the CA. So if you all are comfortable with that, they're basically fabricating windows that will match an existing historic window that's available.
Yes.
So.
Are there conditions on any other items that the applicant needs to agree to that I'm not remembering?
I believe we've covered it all.
Okay. Any more discussion, or do we have a motion?
Well, I'll move to approve HPCA 19-0006, item 9, item 2, item 5, item 13, and item 8. Well, I believe was all that was left with the specific findings.
Item 3 and item 18 have not been addressed. Do you want to also?
Well, yes, I didn't see them. That's what I was looking for, was everything we haven't done. And I still don't see them. Where are they? Item 3 and item 18?
Item 9?
Well, I said item 9.
She did mention 9.
I missed it.
Yep.
Well, whatever item 3 and item 18 are. The demolition, are we approving that? Yeah, I didn't say item 3 because it's the demolition.
Yeah.
We usually do a separate motion
Yeah.
for demolition of the garage because it does have separate findings.
Right.
We're approving that.
And then someone said item
18.
Where's 18?
Replace basement windows, it's listed under.
Yeah.
Why are the
Oh,
item numbers-
okay, I said item 13, yes, add item 18. You can see that.
Okay.
All right, so with the specific findings, and we still have some conditions, I think, outstanding, so in conditions as stated in the staff report.
Okay. Second? What? 5 was included, yes. And the unique circumstance, Suzanne?
No, I didn't, yes.
For which item, Paula?
Well, let's see. I didn't see a unique circumstance.
Item 7? Oh, that was
We're
continued.
not doing the shutters.
That was continued, so
Yeah.
that was in the prior motion.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Kelly's got it.
Okay. It's been moved by Suzanne Broadbent, seconded by Taylor Fudge. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those items have been approved. Now we're left with item 3 to demolish the garage.
I make a motion to approve that. Oh, I'm sorry. Take off. I make a motion to approve HPCA 19-0006 with the specific findings as noted in the staff report.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, been approved by Mary Jo Meacham, seconded by Suzanne Broadbent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that item has also been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 19-00010 at 1013 Northwest 17th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Craig Cook for certificate of appropriateness to 1, rebuild front porch required, and 2, install railing required. I want to note that we have 3 properties on the 1,000 block of Northwest 17th this
We are
month, which
driving
is really weird.
property
You guys are
value
really-
up right there like
Yep,
crazy.
Yep, it's just the hot spot of the city. So at this property, we had a previously altered front porch that had been enclosed with concrete block and created kind of this garage carport structure. The applicant got started on returning that to a front porch without a CA. Once they came in and met with us, realizing they needed a CA, we found that they did actually have historic photos of the previous front porch. So the design that you see in front of you on the PowerPoint is not what they intend to complete. They are going to try to return it to the appearance of the historic porch. The only change they are making to that is to add a railing similar to the railing that you see there. But it will have the brick columns with the cast stone cap, the round wood columns on top, the concrete block remaining at the porch skirt.
And in our application today is the drawing that shows it being returned to its historic condition. condition, then adding the railing?
Yes,
Yes.
just adding the railing.
Okay.
You have one additional drawing that came in after the packet
Okay.
had gone out that shows in a little further detail the railing, the column, and the porch.
There are
floor
no
and skirt.
dimensions on this additional drawing.
That is true. That was intended to show kind of the the setbacks and relationships, but staff was fairly comfortable that between the floor plan that we have, the elevation that we have of the railings, and then the details that we have of the railings and the column, we're getting an accurate representation of what they intend to build.
Okay. Well, thank you for returning it to its historic condition.
You're very welcome.
We appreciate that.
Our wood works better than our drawing, I promise.
Okay, I hope so.
Their scope of work that they submitted, every time I read this, I think it's a magic trick because it says, using a picture from the original house, we will transform the converted carport. Sorry, I had to...
We had to paint the picture.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So we have one suggestion. Please build it as you have drawn it.
Perfect.
Okay.
It was designed 100% right off the original picture.
Okay. Because you will get caught. Okay. Any comments from commissioners? All righty. I'll take a motion.
I move to approve HPCA 19-00010 with the specific findings as noted in the staff report and the condition in the staff report.
Second.
Okay. Been moved by Mary Jo Meacham, seconded by Suzanne Broadbent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. We look forward
Thank
to
you.
seeing the completed work.
HPCA 19-13 at 900 Northwest 19th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration of possible action on application by Haven Mankin Architect for Kevin D. Lafferty for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace rear porch elective.
Okay, looks like the applicant is present. Any initial thoughts from commissioners? Looking at the staff report, we have recommendation to continue item 1. It always confuses me, and maybe it's just me, but on the first page of the staff report, item 1 says to replace rear porch. And then if you go to where your recommendation is, it says to demolish existing and construct new covered landing. So I always have to get a
Yes,
couple
we try
times.
to catch those. We missed that one. We try to have them match in every location. I mean, it's essentially saying the same thing, but yes.
And Katie, could you tell us why you've recommended a continuance?
So we have an existing landing. We don't necessarily think that it's historic, but it is fairly modest and it's all wood. What's proposed to go back in the place is much more substantial with brick columns. So we wanted the commission to consider that change. It is at a corner lot, so it will potentially be visible. And then the other thing we wanted the commission to consider is that they are proposing a composite material for all the elements that would historically have been wood, the railings, the porch floor, I believe the roof structure as well is a composite material and those details. We allow for composite materials on porch floors in some locations and decking, but we don't usually see it for all aspects of the structure. I think those were the main concerns. There's some lighting on the porch that we don't often see on a historic porch.
Okay. Are you Mr. Lafferty?
My name's Haven Mankin. I'm the architect representing the Laffertys.
Okay, if you'll sign in, please.
I did, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So we just heard Katie explain that the existing porch is a more modest design and it's all wood and you're wanting to go back with something more substantial and use a composite material. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I'd be happy to. The existing porch is 24 square feet. It actually sticks out from the house a foot more than what we're proposing for the new replacement. The new replacement is 32 square feet, and the lighting is only for safety. Now, there's two posts that have very low-level lighting and then some lighting in the risers of the steps. I think, if I'm not wrong, staff was concerned about a light fixture we proposed on top of a brick post, and we can eliminate that. That's not a big deal. I think that the two post lights that would be barely visible, one's below the fence line and the other one is 8 inches above the fence, but it's 4 feet back from the fence. So
Are those the two that staff is recommending that you not install?
I'm not clear. I think staff could clarify because the post lights are on the stair baluster that goes down to the concrete in the backyard. But I kind of thought that the light that was on top of the brick post might be the one that was objectionable, and we're happy to remove that. That's not a big deal. The other lights will give the safety we need.
Okay. Angela, would you?
The light fixtures that staff is concerned about are actually the fixtures that are inside the posts themselves, the modern feature, yes. We see occasionally within the historic districts, we do have yards that have brick columns with light fixtures mounted on them. Those are dated prior to my arrival here. Whether or not they're historic, I don't know, but I do know we have them. We've had requests for lighted posts previously. Typically, when they are located on a side yard and visible through the fence, staff recommends that they consider something else. Of course, the commission can review that based on whatever merits that they're aware of as far as that goes.
Good. And on the, we do have, like I said, the lights that are in the riser of the steps, so as you go up and down, you'll be able to see where you're stepping. And that's probably enough to give the safety that we need there. I would like to make a comment. In your packet, I think you may have the historical picture that shows the front of the house and along the east side. And we were fortunate to get that. The owner is really excited about bringing this house back to the way it was. This side approach here isn't, we can't tell anything from the historical photographs, or we would be trying to match that. So what I've designed is something that is not trying to replicate anything, but I'm trying to have something that has some sort of continuity where it doesn't look like this picture that you see on the screen where they just tacked on some boards on the side of the house. The main thing the owners want to do on the third phase, which is mentioned on the site plan drawing, is to rebuild the front porch that wraps around to the east side. Where the cursor is, there's a large corner column there. The brick columns we're proposing for this back stair are 1/4 the size of those. So we're not trying to duplicate brick columns, but if the commission was upset about the brick, we also have the wood inside the column, which is actually load-bearing, and the brick is only veneer. And, we could delete that.
What are the dimensions of the proposed columns?
12 inches square.
Okay, and how tall?
The top of the roof is 13 feet above grade.
Okay, thank you.
I have some questions about the composite materials. What is the existing square portion of the balustrades made of now?
Up there, that's painted wood. It's painted wood. Now, I actually have to confess, I wasn't aware of and I visited with staff and was made aware of the composite material. I was headed that way to reduce maintenance. And also for decking, it works well because they have kids and splinters and that sort of thing. So if we could build the landing and the steps down that are all behind the fence and can't be seen, with the composite. We could go to painted wood above. What you see in that picture is all painted wood.
I think that would work better. Is that, Angela?
But what you see in this picture over the main approach there, the patio, that decoration, you can kind of see where it's been torn off of the house if you move to the left as you view the picture, and it wraps around that east side. And there's another big corner column that you can kind of see. But the owners in phase 3 of this project want to replace that as it was in the photograph. So they're very tuned in to the historical preservation, love this house, and want it to be right.
Katie, could you just clarify on the lights, which ones you all are recommending to stay and which ones you're recommending to be left off? There's a light on the brick column, and then there's these two lights that are referred to as composite lighted post caps.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the stair lights. Which ones are you all?
So we don't see either of those things historically. Normally, we would see a light fixture that hangs in an appropriate location, not lights that are built into the steps and the porch rail and that sort of thing itself. So we usually try to point people in the direction of just getting an actual, wall-mounted or ceiling-mounted fixture.
So I know you talked about those. I mean, would you be willing just to stay with just the lighting fixture on the top of the brick column?
Yes, ma'am. There was 4 types of fixtures there. If the commission had a favorite, that'd be fine.
Do you have a light under the roof of the porch?
Right now, there's a hanging one down.
Oh, okay.
In the packet, I had one that was surface mounted rather than hanging down because it's sort of similar to the front porch.
Okay.
But either way.
So there would be a light under the porch roof and then the light on top of the brick column. Is that?
Yes, ma'am.
And then the porch would be, except for the landing and the steps, would be wood.
Yes.
Is that right,
Katie? And I'd like you to clarify the brick columns and whether that was okay or objectionable to the commission.
I mean, I think with the whole thing, I don't have an objection. I think maybe there's a thought that it's a little too decorative. Is that what you're?
If the brick is removed, we'd have I believe it'd be 5.5-inch square wood post.
I think personally, I think the brick would look better. I think wood posts sticking up, but
that's kind of.
I agree. I think I like the brick. It is a substantial home. They are. I'm fine with it. I think the guidelines support those.
Okay, so you have, my final question, you have dentals on the porch. Are they located someplace else on the house?
On the front, that view of the front, right
on the
there.
Front porch.
It may not be seen. Down low above the address, right there.
They're right there.
Yes, ma'am.
Then I would say yes to those.
Okay. Well, staff has recommended a continuance. Do you want to make a motion to approve?
What?
Said staff recommended a continuance. Do you want to make a motion to approve with those changes?
Do with the changes. So I would make a motion to, see, is everything listed under one?
Yes.
Okay. I would make a motion to approve HPCA 19-00013 with the specific findings as noted by staff, including 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. Not 5. Not 6. 7, limited to the porch floor and steps.
I think that would be a condition.
Oh, is that a condition?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
and that a more, okay. 7, okay. It's confusing. 9 and 10 with the condition, with the following conditions. 1, that the porch balustrades and that the material above the floor of the porch and the steps must be either wood or brick, and that the lighting will be limited to the light fixture on top of the brick post and a fixture, modest fixture under on the ceiling of the porch roof.
Mr. Mencken, do you and your clients agree to those conditions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Been moved by Mary Jo Meacham, seconded by Suzanne Broadbent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Let's take a 5-minute break. We've been here for almost 3 hours.
Okay.
Okay. let's bring the meeting back to order.
HPCA 19-15 at 1011 Northwest 14th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Heidi Wesley Vaughan for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace screen door on enclosed porch elective, 2, replace windows on enclosed porch elective, and 3, replace siding on enclosed porch elective.
Okay.
This is, as you can see, this is a side porch that was previously enclosed in not so sympathetic a manner with aluminum windows and door, and the applicant would like to replace those with more appropriate materials.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So aluminum clad windows that
If
are
you'll
double
state
hung.
your name and your
Oh, I'm
address
sorry.
and sign in.
Sure. Heidi Wesley Vaughan, and it's 1011 Northwest 14th Street.
Okay.
Yep. So we would like to remove the aluminum siding because it's a bit of an eyesore, and we'd like to put in the windows that was specified that would be aligning with the historical preservation, which would be double hung aluminum clad, and then we would like to put in a solid wood door in fir.
Okay, did you receive the staff report, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see the conditions? One of them is that an alternate door be proposed.
Okay.
With
that's
greater
fine.
transparency, so not a solid wood door.
Okay, so it was solid wood, I believe 3/4 up, and then I had 6 windows at the top. How much window would you like in the door?
Katie or Angela, what were your
So
thoughts?
that is entirely for the commission to decide. Usually when we see an enclosed porch, we try to keep it as transparent as possible. Sometimes we see like a 15-light door. You might see something where it's, glass all the way top to bottom with the panes. Sometimes you see less than that. So that was staff's suggestion, but I would leave it to the commission to determine what's appropriate in that location.
I've looked at it, and I think that, I think there needs to be more, it would be my opinion, maybe more transparency, less mullions and dividers, so that it looks more like a porch instead of a room.
We're amenable to that. That's fine. I can come up with a couple. I already have a few other door options that I can send over to Katie to be improved.
So on the front, you're not putting brick back at the bottom or anything like that?
No, we'll put cedar down at the bottom, and then the
Cedar.
windows should be comparable in size.
Cedar?
Siding.
No. No. I mean, if those are open, probably what it was maybe double doors. Do you think that's what it was originally?
I don't know. We've only lived here for less than 3 years. I was just assuming we would still flank it with 2 windows and then just put wood around it, framing it. But if we need to do something else, we're fine with that.
I would ask that maybe staff, I know you didn't submit any drawings.
No, just one that my husband did. We didn't have an architect drawing.
I mean, and it doesn't have to be, professional, but just submit drawings to staff. I mean, what are you thinking, Katie? I guess I didn't read the part that there would be wood at the bottom. I don't think that would be appropriate at the bottom on either side of the door.
I think they were just kind of going with the same proportions of everything that's already there.
Right.
The 2 windows with a door with the, siding at the bottom.
So if you wanted, those to be, single on either side of a door with glass, like the bottom of the door could be wood equal to those 2 pieces on either side, and then maybe, some kind of a wood siding, but not a
Almost
cedar.
like a door with side lights where the
Right,
wood
a
lines
door
up
with side
across
lights.
the
You could
bottom.
even do maybe even a little panel under there that was flat.
Okay.
And had trim around. I don't want to design it for you, but I'm just.
That's perfect. So
trying
it would
to
still
think
be
of some-
one door, not double doors, correct?
Right.
Okay,
yeah,
I don't want
You could do
double.
that.
Okay.
Could you, and just submit, and I think that we would be open to windows that are more transparent than double hung, because.
Okay, so no double hung, you just want them
I think that staff they could approve either, but I think I would rather it look like a porch instead of like a bunch of double-hung windows.
Okay, so if they're not double hung, then you're saying they wouldn't open at all? So
They could be casement windows.
Oh, casement windows, okay.
Something like that.
All right, I'm amenable to that. We just want to get the aluminum siding off, so we're ready to go.
Okay. Are you a neighbor? Like to
Yes.
speak? You'll state your name and
Stephen
address.
Jacoby. I live immediately next door to the east at 1007 Northwest 14th Street. I've lived in this home for 26 years. I've lived in the neighborhood for 32. Just a little background on these houses. There are 7 of them that were built almost identical floor plan. My house, the 3 immediately to the west, including the subject house, the 2 west of that, and then 3 across the street, not the end one, but the next 3. They all have these open side porches. G.A. Nichols built these with a sleight of hand by changing the roof pitch, moving the door around, moving the chimney around. And originally these all had the single side porch with rear-facing stairs and railings across the front. The house in this picture to the west, when I moved in to my current house in 1993, it had an enclosed side porch with smaller windows, cedar siding on it, that the present owner removed in the late 90s, probably around 99 or so. Improved this house tremendously. I've got a couple big issues with this. One is that there's no elevation drawings of what's being proposed. With that in mind, the existing windows that are in there now are 64 inches tall. The applicant proposes 56-inch tall windows. It's unclear to me whether the tops of the windows are dropping or the sills raising on what's being proposed. Again, there's no elevation drawings, so you can't really tell. The building material sheet that was provided has 4 windows that are 39 inches wide. They're being proposed. I'm assuming those are on the east-facing elevation. The opening there is 13 feet wide, so this elevation here, so those windows won't even fit in there. So it's unclear, again, as to where those windows are going and how they're oriented, or if it's a mix of windows. My biggest things are the decrease in transparency of the side porch. The window area is getting smaller over what's there now, and I agree with your comments that increasing the glass is better. I've got no problems with enclosing the porch. The second one is the use of rough cedar siding on a brick house, particularly on the street-facing elevation. I think it's inappropriate in Heritage Hills and on this type of facility.
I would suggest maybe we need to continue because it sounds like that the elevations need to be available to neighbors prior to.
Oh, I'm sorry. As I had spoken with, I'd emailed Katie that once we submitted, I said, my numbers are a little bit off, so we are going to have the framer remeasure. The windows should look the same. They should, it's not going to be starkly different, but as Mr. Jacoby said, the dimensions were off, and he is correct. After we submitted everything, my husband said, these windows are too big for the wall, so they do need to be made smaller, so we do need to iron out our window sizes. Correct.
So it sounds like based on both correcting those measurements and based on some changes to the design, perhaps we could continue to the April 3rd meeting. Between now and then, we could pin down exactly the design and bring that back so that the public can review it, so the commission can see the final design and have a true elevation drawing of what the finished product would be.
Okay, so we will pick out a new door then that is more transparent and then make certain the window sizing is perfectly correct just so it can get fully approved.
And provide the elevation drawings.
In an elevation drawing.
Which you don't need an architect to do that. You can draw those, but we just need the dimensions. And
okay.
And if you're already working with your framer, they probably can do that as well, just on.
Perfect, but it needs to come before the committee again. It can't just be approved outside.
I think so, based on, that would be staff's preference based on the amount of changes that have been discussed.
And then it gives your neighbors the ability to, see it before it's totally approved.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry, one more question. The area below the windows there, you were proposing that we can still put wood there, but what type of wood would you like to see? Correct.
I mean, are there, you might look in the neighborhood and see if you can find, a similar situation where, it's original or older, but to me, it would be maybe a panel, I don't know.
Like a cedar panel then?
Not a cedar, a paintable wood, like a, paint.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, do we have a motion?
And I can get you some examples.
Yes,
of that.
thank you, Katie.
Yeah, Katie will help you out.
That
Yeah,
sounds
so
good.
you'll work with staff.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay.
I make a motion to continue HPCA 19-00015 to the May 1st meeting.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, April 3rd.
April 3rd.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mary Jo Meacham, seconded by Suzanne Broadbent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
HPCA 19-16 at 1022 Northwest 17th, Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration of possible action on application by Sophia Jans for Joy Baracel, JB Design, for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish garage elective, 2, replace fence and install fence at perimeter of garage proposed for demolition elective. This is a garage that, based on the Sanborn maps, does not appear to be the original garage. It does appear to go back as far as 1955, but is not original to the property. And the applicant has provided additional documentation that there are some pretty serious structural concerns with the garage as well. On the fence, the applicant had proposed a fence height of 8 feet along the side, which typically is not approved, but we do have the ability to approve increased height when they are adjacent to an incompatible use. And because this is right along Western, where they're adjacent to commercial properties and to higher traffic, staff felt that that increased fence height was perhaps appropriate.
Okay, I think that's fair. Any comments from commissioners? Okay.
Are you intending to rebuild a garage?
We're uncertain at this point, but the plan that we've proposed is to knock it down and have that be a driveway.
Okay.
So we're getting estimates on that. The first phase is to get the approval to knock this down.
Okay.
Can you state your name and your
My name
address
is
for us?
Paul Barcel. I'm the owner.
I'm sorry, was that question, you're not intending to
This is just phase
Unclear. First phase was to get approval to knock this down, and I'm going to, if you approve this, I will, do what's outlined in here, put a fence around this and keep that stem wall. And at that point, I was going to get some estimates on putting a garage back. So just wanted to step through this.
I have a question for staff. Because this is presumed non-original, they wouldn't have to go back with a concrete block.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All righty.
Well, I think we still need to be careful on things that are over 50 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm calling them non-original.
It may not be original, but it's
we have a
historic.
lot of things that
That's true.
acquire their own history. The other, I do have one more comment on this one.
Okay.
When we say incompatible uses, I don't really think it's incompatible. It's another use that's totally different business. But we're in the core. We don't really have.
That's true. I don't really mean incompatible,
Right.
but we generally have allowed increased height
Right.
for fences and
for
when they're
high
adjacent
traffic
to-
areas
Yeah.
and being next to businesses, but incompatible.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I think it could lead to other things. People say, well, that's incompatible.
Yep. No, I agree. I don't think that's what the guidelines say either. I just made that up.
So, Mary Jo, are you thinking that the 8-foot fence is something that we just want to change that language maybe in the...
Well, it's. sorry, we want to have a fence because there's traffic, but to say that businesses next to neighborhoods are incompatible, I mean, that's the whole nature of the inner city, so.
Well, is the traffic on that street worse than Chartel or Classen or
West,
13th or 14th?
Well, the guidelines allow for when residential properties are adjacent to commercial, or it does say, or other incompatible uses. But commercial was what we focused on because they are across the street from like Homeland and
there's a commercial property directly behind it.
So it's just a different character than being across the street from another house. That's what that's getting at.
I make a motion to approve HPCA 19-00016 with, let's see, are we going to do the demolition separate? Item.
Yes.
So item 1 only with the specific findings in the staff report and the condition of location and the unique circumstance noted by, in the staff report.
I'm sorry, do you agree with the condition?
The condition of the structure, the garage?
No, that's in the staff report. Do you have it in front of you?
The east side of the fence should be located 40% back from the front wall of the house.
Yes, I agree with that.
And not to exceed 6 feet in height except
the east side
steps
fence.
toward- Okay. Yeah.
This is the west side fence.
Right.
So the east side.
Yeah.
The east side
Basically-
fence would be 6 feet and limited, it'd have to be back.
Yeah, we basically would put the fence on the back line of the garage, and that would be a driveway out there. That's what we're trying to communicate. So you take with the slab that's going to be left over after the structure's knocked down and put a fence around that.
Well, I think, are you referring to the west fence or the east fence?
I'm talking about the east back fence.
Okay.
So if you look over on the site plan, it's in red here, kind of what we're proposing to do. I don't know if you have this document.
Ms. Barisal has already agreed to the conditions that are in the staff report, and the additional fencing that's outside of the colored portion that you're speaking about may or may not be done at a later date.
Yep.
Okay. You agree to that condition?
Mary Jo, I think on the unique circumstance, you do want to change that language a little bit based on your comment.
To
take out abutting incompatible.
Abutting, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I don't care.
I think you could say the neighborhood
Abutting just
abuts a high traffic area.
Right, high traffic
with
and
unusual
unusual
levels.
noise.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. Okay, and that is for item 2 only?
Item 2.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mary Jo Meacham, seconded by Suzanne Broadbent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now on to demolition of the garage.
I make a motion to approve item 1 of HPCA 19-00016 with the specific findings as noted by the staff in the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion by Mary Jo Meacham, seconded by Taylor Fudge. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you're good to go.
Thank you,
Thanks.
appreciate it.
HPCA 19-18 at 2601 North Chartel, Paseo, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on an application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architects for Zach Purnett, A2Z Properties LLC for certificate of appropriateness to 1, alter clipped gable end required, 2, lime washed house required, 3, replace wood fascia with fiber cement required, 4, replace stucco with car siding required, 5, replace door required, 6, install window on rear required, 7, reinstall brick required, 8, replace ceiling at east porch required, 9, replace columns at east porch required, 10, replace sidewalks required, and 11, relocate door on north elevation required. As you might guess, a lot of this work has already taken place or at least been initiated, and we must review it as if it had not yet occurred. Staff has recommended continuance for all items, essentially because most of the work as proposed does not appear to meet the guidelines.
Holly, will you state your name and address?
Hi, Holly Hunt. I guess I'll just give work address, 400 Northwest 23rd Street.
Okay. So staff has identified that pretty much everything does not appear to be in line with the guidelines.
Right,
Guess
and
you
so-
can talk on why you think it is.
So when this project was brought to Sam and I, yes, Zach had already begun. He had a vision for the house. And to be fair, to him anyway, he really felt like that what he was doing was more cosmetic fixes and updating rather than like a real alteration. So even though he knew it was in the historic district, he didn't quite understand the implication of the guidelines. So, so yes, what we've proposed here in these items for review, that's kind of what his, without making any compromises, what his list was. So, and I told him, I said, let's take it to him, let's get some feedback, and let's discuss, you know, what you can do and what of these items would be allowed. So anyway, I've worked with him, and I mean, there's a few things I'd like to clarify just based on the staff report. But I will tell you, this is what it looked like whenever I first arrived. So any information that it says is missing on what was existing, you know, there you go. That's the reason for that. However, I think there's a lot of things here that looking at pictures, there's a lot of the existing that's remaining. So I'm hopeful we can come to an agreement here. Do you want me to go through just my notes? Would that help you guys? Okay, number one. So when Zach thought it wasn't original, this clipped roof, his idea was to restore it back to the same gable you see on the front or south elevation. You see it there, yeah. That, you know, that just seemed to him to be the more natural thing. So he straightened that out, and I do think that that's something that would fit really nicely with the architecture of the home. I went and investigated. I've looked at some pictures. I can't prove that it's unoriginal to the home. However, I don't understand why it would be built so different.
It was very common.
Okay. So that was one. The lime wash, I let him know that that was likely not going to fly. But his whole reasoning there is because they have had to do quite a bit of masonry work and touch up and tuck pointing, and it was difficult for him to match the mortar, as you can see there. So his solution was going to be to lime wash the house in hopes that
fixing his mistake.
Correct. So, and the next, let's see, the wood fascia, I would just point out that we are matching that existing profile, and one way you can really tell in the photos is the bottom. In the older photos, I'm sure you've got them in your packet, that fascia board comes right down to the top of the roll lock. So this is the one exception that's in the foreground of this photo. Where the chimney wall is on, that trim only exists there. The rest of the trim is a doubled up wide trim. And I don't know, there's an existing photo in the staff report. Maybe that would be helpful to go to. Yes, right here. It's not that one. But in this one, you can really see that wide fascia running all the way around the building, with the exception of being these two front eaves. So, and it sits right at the top of that soldier coursing, which is the vertical row of bricks. So the idea was to match that identically. Moving on. Yeah, there is. Let's see. Okay, so as far as the stucco with the car siding, yeah, again, that was a design choice, but we are happy to paint it if that's the preference of the commission with the guidelines. That's totally fine, and we can do the same with the fascia. They do make a flat panel in that hardy board, so if the wood grain painted isn't acceptable, we can go to a smooth finish as well. Okay, number 5, I really do want to clarify here. So the door that is kind of around the corner of the chimney wall, so that door right there, I'm sorry that Paul is pointing out, that door we are keeping. We are just relocating it to the other door location. And then and in its place, we'll replace a new door. Now, you can't see it in these photos, but
Okay.
the door that was there is like a fiberglass door. It is not original.
So the door, can you go back to that
Sure.
other picture, Paula? Around the corner, on the side of the house with the door, the white door on the side of the house? I think it's on the side of the house. Keep going. That one? You're saying you're going to take that door off. Is that an original door?
I believe so. It's wood.
So you want to take that off and put it on the other side of the chimney wall?
Correct.
And then what were you going to put here?
And it shows in the existing, and there's a detail. It's a 3/4 wood door, so 3/4 light, so glass panes. It's drawn there, but definitely using wood.
So what, is this an entry or a side entry or?
You know, it's in the original structure, it was a duplex, so they were both entry doors, but now, yes, this will be the primary entrance to the home.
Is this the door you're talking about?
No, no. That was just an example of the lime wash, sorry.
Okay, so what page is the door?
It's here.
Is it on page 26 of 38?
It's A3.3, oh, I'm sorry, you were, 37 of 38 is the detail, and then it also shows on the elevations, 36 of 38. And I'm sorry, I realize that was, I should have labeled it differently. I'm showing it as an existing door because it is an existing door, but we're moving it to there and using a new door at this location.
Okay, so the new door you're proposing, is it on page 26 of 38? Little tiny doors with the red star?
I believe so. It's a chart of doors?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's from the company that manufactures it, but it's a custom door. So yes and no, it's the basic shape and dimension and shows the appropriate glass size, but it will be made to look like this. It will have a recessed panel, and it will have true divided light, or simulated divided light up top.
Okay.
It's hard to get a brochure for customs, you know, or cut sheet or.
Is that item 5? For
Correct.
Door?
Correct. And so again, the door around the corner from the chimney, at some point that original door has been lost, or it's not currently there. It wasn't when the owner obtained the property, and it is just a fiberglass door. I mean,
The one on the front?
Home Depot, yeah.
Okay, so Katie or Angela, for replacement door must be fully described. So we need more information from the one in her drawing. Is that what you're saying there? Okay.
I was thinking maybe they meant that the existing doors weren't fully described, and perhaps that's true because I saw them and immediately was like, you're going to have to replace these doors.
So the replacement door must be fully described.
Oh.
So,
Yeah,
Katie,
I
does the
don't
door-
think I
Is
fully
the door she's
understand.
describing, is that, okay. No.
This one here.
Yeah, so that one's going where this one is.
Yes.
Correct, and that one moves to the other, because we need privacy at the other location. It now becomes a bedroom.
Now, is that's solid, that's not painted,
Correct, that is a solid, it's got recessed panels, it's a solid wood door.
and you think that's not a historic door? Or you think that is a historic?
No, I think it is. Yeah.
And that's the one they're moving?
Yes, we're keeping that one.
Keeping
To
that
the
one.
other front
To the
door
other
that's
front
not
door
now not a front
location,
door.
and then adding her
Correct.
drawing, she has a door, and is it?
Yes.
Is it dimensioned?
Yes.
Okay. That's the one she wants to add to the side there, where they're taking the other
new
door and
front.
moving it. Yeah. That's going to be the new front door?
Correct,
Yeah,
yes.
I missed that.
Well, and it's like, yeah, if you're looking at all the
Okay.
floor plan with that, yeah.
So, I mean, in general, when we have a historic door in a visible location, such as on the front of a building, we would say you need to keep that historic door or you need to replicate that historic door. We have some flexibility with doors of that design, on the back of a structure when people want to
Sure.
come back in and replace a back door. But usually, if we think that what we're looking at is the historic door, And I'm sorry, Angela has worked this more closely with Holly than I have, so it's easy to get turned around on this building.
Yeah, it has 2 front facades, truly.
Yeah.
I mean,
On our photos that we have, Holly, what is the work on this, on the front page where the red arrow is? What does that correspond to?
red arrow.
That's the clipped gable. They altered the roof there.
Correct. Are you talking about this side?
I believe so. Has that work been approved, or what's happening on that?
No, all of these items, he basically was forced to stop work, for obvious reasons, so he came to us to try to, get a CA. That's where we're at.
Glad he stopped.
Don't hate the
We're just listening to explanations of where we are so we can
Okay, Holly, let's move on to item 6.
Okay. Item 6. That one, I don't know what the existing window depth or height was there, but we're basically replacing a window on the rear. Again, don't know what the existing dimension is, but we're matching the width of the opening. Keep going, Paula. Oh, I have pictures, all this, and I always bring you guys pictures. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I had never done that. Well, again, it shows in my detail drawing and on the elevations, but basically on the rear of the house, this window here is what we're talking about. I am guessing that it was probably a lower seal, but over the years it's been boarded up, that window has been lost. So we're replacing it to match the width. We are going to shorten it, or we assume shortening it, in order to put a sink below it. It's in a kitchen. It's located.
I think the concern there is that it needs to be true divided light.
Okay. And so what is the distinguished, how do we know when we can use simulated versus true?
True on historic property, on the part.
So, yeah, simulated divided light is allowed in new construction and in an addition. But when you're within the historic structure itself, it has to be true divided light.
I see. Okay. Well, that's fine. We can make that happen.
Let's move on to 7.
Yeah, it says reinstall, which is true to a degree, but this is, again, just the entire house needed a lot of masonry repairing. So that's what the client really was trying to do.
Well, without the covering of using the lime wash to cover up some very terrible repointing.
Yes.
I mean, that...
Well, that actually wasn't tuck pointing. Sorry to interject, but that was brick that had fallen off the building, and they've actually put it back up. They just couldn't find...
Okay, I mean, that's not allowed. It's not allowed to be put back like that. So I don't see how we can... I mean, personally, I think he should have to take off all of the brick that he's put on with the extremely poor... I mean, the mortar is supposed to match the existing.
Correct.
I mean, there's nothing that he can do to fix that, I don't think, other than start over.
Well, I did discuss this with him. I think it would be possible for us to remove a depth of the mortar enough to come back in tuck point as you would with a grout that matches.
I would say maybe we could do a test.
Perhaps. Yeah, and that would, I mean, I think he'll be doing some tests as well.
I mean, you could do a sample and come back and show how that looks.
So I'm getting the feedback that yes, we should keep this beautiful brick, but we should just make sure that it's done in appropriate mortar color in the repair.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Number 8. This was something Angela brought up, and it's true. I don't call it out, but yes, I again don't know what's there, but under this porch here, and you can see it there, it is a tongue and groove wood, true wood. It almost looks, what do they call it, that beadboard. So again, I think he was intending on staining it, but if the preference is for it to be painted, we can certainly do that.
Is it original, or he took the original down and then he put something back kind of like
Actually,
it? Is it the same dimension? Or?
Actually, he said that when he got it, it was exposed. It was just open. The house had gone really in terrible shape.
Okay.
Okay. Let's move on to 9.
9, the columns, yes. In some of the original photos, you can see the original columns there were that thin iron, wrought iron look, and they were L-shaped, so they're made a corner. And again, the homeowner thought that he was doing the house a favor, returning back to a more historic column in his mind. He thought that those had been put in at a later time than the original construction.
I don't think they're original. Angela, did you think they were original?
Possibly. We've got, as far as my research shows, we've been using decorative iron in the district since pre-1935, but I don't know enough about the designs.
I mean, if it was really old, you could tell.
Okay.
I mean, or if it was just like replaced with wrought iron, which was common later on.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it to judge one way or the other. All I can do is bring it to your attention.
Holly, maybe you could look at the top of the capstones and see if there's an old square. I mean, if there was a painted column on it, I would think that you would see some kind of evidence.
It's kind of past that point of investigation. I mean, Mary Jo, trust me, I wish I could give you those answers. I'm not trying to.
I know it.
In any way, justify where we're at today, but just now that we are here, trying to make the best moves to get this, repair overall to the house into appropriateness.
So, Angela or Katie, would you explain or tell us what replacement columns might be appropriate? It seems to suggest in your findings that the ones that have been installed are not.
Yeah, we don't usually see, the kind of knotty wood like that a lot of times people want to come back in and stain that, so that's not necessarily an appropriate material. It might have been something that was a similarly simple column, perhaps with some more trim detail to it and a painted finish. I don't know if...
I mean, I'm in agreement. I mean, if you weren't going to rebuild the little thing and put it back, that it could be a paintable, not cedar.
Well, and we do intend to paint these.
Not a knotty.
Well, it's not.
Knotty
That's
wood is not paintable. That's not. I mean, you can. I'm not saying you can't put paint on it, but
that's actually just pine. I know you're seeing a lot of
knotty pine or whatever it is. Knots are not paintable. It's not a paintable. It's not considered proper for paint because the knots are just going to pop out. So, how is that, appropriate to paint? In my opinion, I mean, we don't have any knotty pine in the historic districts that we've painted, or it would look terrible.
I mean, most paint grade wood is pine, and again, knotty alder is a very, very busy.
You can get knotless. I mean, when you're painting something on the outside of a house, they do it all the time now, but only because of economics. It is not correct to paint knots.
I think we prefer a knotless. Knotless and some
clear
trim.
There is a category called clear pine.
We can certainly face this post.
Yes.
Put
a
with
little
the
cap on the top and bottom, perhaps.
And so perhaps it's just best that we provide a little bit more information on how he plans on finishing. Okay?
Okay. Number 10, replace sidewalks.
So the best example here, again, the sidewalks were already demoed when I got there, but you can see in the photos the steps leading up to the south facade and the east. And, I mean, we plan to just put them right back according to the zoning ordinance, a 5-foot sidewalk approaching that little stoop or porch, I suppose, and then the same on the other side. And that does show on the floor plans, but it's just not. And there'll be concrete as well. I noticed that was an item in the staff report. We'll use concrete steps, just like in the original.
Okay, so that work has not been done yet. Okay, so what were the dimensions of those sidewalks before they were pulled out? If they're smaller, do we need to go back with the smaller sidewalk?
Usually they're fairly consistent in a surrounding area, so you can kind of look at what the sidewalk dimensions are at other
Sure.
properties in the immediate area and get those measurements.
All righty, number 11?
Okay. Okay, so this is another, just, I think, miscommunication, probably my fault. But we're not relocating the door on the north elevation. Oh, wait, no, I'm so sorry. Yes, this is on the rear of the house. We're just scooting it over slightly. It moves about 8 inches. It shows here, or a little more than 8, but just needing to shift it over to fit the new floor plan. So we'll just infill with a little brick, which he does have plenty of this brick.
Is it the door next to the air compressor?
Correct.
So the brick's already...
I'm not certain.
Holly, is there anything that you think that we could possibly approve today?
Yes, I'm hopeful that we could approve items 1, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 11.
8, okay. 1, no.
Okay.
I
throw
mean,
that in there?
personally. 4.
4, you said you would paint it instead?
I mean, but you've removed stucco.
Place stucco. There, what building material is on there now? There was stucco?
It was stucco.
And now there's wood, right?
Has he put it back?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Has he already put something there?
He's already done the car siding there, yes.
Okay, so
It shows in one of these.
yeah, I don't think
Here it
we
is.
can approve that one either. We don't know the stucco was non-historic. We don't know the condition it was in.
I mean, stucco's traditional on these houses, so I wouldn't know. I would
Yeah.
think that it was original. Okay, number 6, install the window on the rear.
Here.
With the
That was-
condition that it needs to be true divided light.
Yes.
Number 8 was the porch ceiling,
What about number 7?
and number 11.
Installed
On number 7, I
Oh,
would say we need
no.
to sample. They
Yeah.
need to experiment and see
Yeah.
if they can
Yeah.
fix it, because I would say that it goes along with number 2, which is a no.
Yeah, you're right.
So if we're going to, if a lime wash is not going to go, then the brick has to be repaired.
So I'm hearing, number 2 is a hard no. Is that what I'm hearing?
Repair the brick, I mean, at least yes.
Okay.
I mean,
Reinstall
can't
brick.
speak for everybody, but I'll speak for myself. I'm kind of like, I feel
What
for
does
you,
this
Holly.
side of the table think?
I know it's been a long day for you all.
So we're at number 8, replace ceiling at east porch.
I mean,
With the tongue and groove
right,
beadboard.
that,
What are everyone's thoughts on that?
I mean, that, to me, I don't see that as a problem compared to everything else.
But is it a problem on its own?
I don't think so. I mean, probably if it would have been, I mean, beadboard ceilings, I'm not,
And soffits. Very common.
and soffits is,
No,
and when you say that,
not
are
me.
you,
I just
are these
meant in-
individual tongue and groove pieces? It's not like, he's not cutting that 4 by 8.
Correct. Yeah, no, it's
Okay.
individual, yeah.
Okay.
I can
Okay.
verify that.
Replace sidewalks is item 10.
I mean, I think
we need to have
just to leave that, they're not going to do it in the near future. If we're going to have to continue, I think bring a plan.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think there are numerous items here that once we have a little more information, we can administratively approve.
Mhm.
So the sidewalks, I mean, if we replace stucco in kind, we can administratively approve that. If we go back with a wood fascia, we can administratively approve
Okay.
that. We can approve replacing, doors that are appropriate in kind. We can administratively approve repair and repointing of brick if we get a sample and it looks like they're doing it in the appropriate way. So I think all of those things could be continued, and then we work toward administrative approval on those items.
I mean, what needs to be drawn at? Well, one, I don't know what you want to. The clip gable is a problem. Number 9, I mean, we need drawings for the columns.
Yeah, we need dimension drawings.
And
number 10, we need site plan.
Site plan.
Well, I provided one, but I know what you mean, like the
Okay.
sizes. I don't have the existing sizes. I
Yeah,
mean, I
and you
guess
can
I
give
could
that
go.
to staff. I
Yeah.
mean, that did-
Correct.
And then relocate the doors, the last one. I mean, I would.
That's the
I mean,
rear
8 inches.
elevation?
I don't.
Correct.
It's on the back. I don't.
Yeah.
That's okay. Maybe you can use replacing that brick as a standard. Don't
That's a good idea.
do it right there. I don't know.
Okay, so I think we're looking at, everything needs to be continued. So there's some things that aren't going, well, I mean, the lime wash, are we going to deny that now? Or just continue it to give them time to think about it?
So it sounds like we would need to approve relocating the door because staff can't approve that.
Okay.
We would need to approve installing the window on the rear because staff can't approve that.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would say that we could continue everything. We can hold off on the lime wash. I don't think there's a lot of support for that, but since they're still working on the brick situation, and perhaps leave the altar clipped gable end on here as well so that they can address whatever changes need to be made to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we can move forward with item 6 and item 11.
Continue all the other items.
Yeah. So we have a motion to continue items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
I make a motion to continue those items to the.
I would say do May 3rd, or May 1st, so that we've got time to do an administrative approval, because otherwise we'll be right back here writing a staff report before you've had time to do any of the work.
Yes, that'll be fine.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Mary Jo Meacham, seconded by Suzanne Broadbent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now let's take item
Just
6 and 11. And
Okay.
item 6 had a condition.
Has conditions. Let's see. So, find it. Okay, it's item 6. Specific, okay. I make a motion to approve items 6 and 11.
Yes.
HPCA 00018 with the following conditions, as noted in the staff report for item 6, that a wood window with true divided lights is required.
I think they've noted a specific finding, but you're going to change that to a condition.
Oh, that wind?
Yeah.
Okay. And first condition would be that for the window to be a wood true divided light window, and the second condition would be that specifications for that window needs to be submitted to staff. And for item 11,
think it would-
relocating the door on the north elevation with the specific findings that infill around the door must be done with brick and mortar to match the historic.
I think let's make that a condition.
Okay, we'll make that a condition, and I would suggest that you do that one correctly.
I completely agree.
So those are my two.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Who? Okay.
Either way.
Motion made by Mary Jo Meacham, seconded by Suzanne Broadbent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thanks,
Thanks
Holly.
for your time.
Bye.
Okay, HPCA 19-20 at 930 Northwest 20th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Michael Shoemaker, Citadel Construction, LLC, for Blake Waldo, Waldo Investments, LLC, for certificate of appropriateness to replace wood siding and trim in kind at rear elective, replace vinyl siding in bay with brick to match existing elective, and 3, replace existing rear balcony and stair with larger balcony and stair to meet code elective. We believe from the Sanborn maps that the bay window on the side historically was brick, and at some point that brick was removed and the siding put in place, so they proposed to go back with brick in that location to replace other wood siding on the rear addition. I think staff's only condition on this just had to do with some of the details of the siding and trim. This is wood siding that has the little metal corner caps as opposed to a big corner board. And staff felt that was an important detail to retain as part of replacing the siding. And then just the kind of our standard condition on repointing that the mortar be appropriate and match the historic mortar, as we've seen evidenced in previous applications.
Are you Mr. Shoemaker?
Yes, ma'am, Michael Shoemaker.
Okay. So the conditions that are listed in the staff report, there are 3 that she just summarized. Do you agree with those?
Sure.
Okay. Any comments from commissioners? I'll accept a motion.
I make a motion to approve HPCA 19-00020, items 1, 2, and 3, with the specific findings and conditions noted in the staff report by the staff.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Mary Jo Meacham, seconded by George Massey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I'm going to kill Zach.
Thanks for sticking it out.
Punnett was my college roommate, so.
Bye-bye.
Communications and reports, nothing of particular interest to describe. You can always contact staff if you have questions about any of those items. Nothing on for City Council, Board of Adjustment, Planning Commission at this time. Ad hoc committee hasn't met recently. Municipal councilor, nothing. Next meeting date is April 3rd. Applications were to have been received yesterday. New documentation needs to come in by Tuesday, March 12th. And our next workshop is scheduled for this coming Wednesday, March 13th. We feed you guys, if any of our new people don't know that. And we'll get an agenda out to you shortly for that workshop. If you have particular items that you would like to talk about in a workshop, please shoot me an email, because those are always flexible on what we cover.
If I were to make a proposal, would I need to send you information before the meeting?
Yeah, if you can email me before and say, can we please talk about this? That way we make sure we have enough time to cover.
Okay, I have 2 items.
Okay, on items from commissioners, there's been a lot of talk about the First Christian Church, the Egg Church. There's a rally, I think it's going on right now to save the egg. But I would like to initiate the process to designate the First Christian Church as a historic landmark.
Hardly agree.
At the next meeting. Okay? Do we need to make a motion or no? Yeah, okay. Okay, great.
I would like to state for the record that I received a call during the break from the homeowner at 300 Northwest 15th. He told me in the message, which I will keep, that he had spoken with a neighbor of his, I assume Mr. Watson, and asked me to call him if I had any questions about his approval of his building.
Can't do that.
So I will not be calling him for sure, so I will appreciate any information you find out about that. Unfortunate.
Anything else from any other commissioners? No citizens to be heard. We are adjourned.